Good morning, everyone. I am Chair Janelle Wilkins. The date is January 29th, 2026, and we are beginning the Ways and Means bill hearings for the day. We will start with House Bill 290, which is a departmental bill called Income Tax Cybersecurity Technology and Service Tax Credit Alterations. I believe Secretary Coker is here. Welcome, Mr. Secretary. Wonderful to see you. Thank you for being here. You can bring up your witnesses if you'd like them on the panel with you, and you can start as soon as you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Wilkins, Vice Chair Feldmark, and committee members. For the record, I am Maryland Secretary of Commerce Harry Coker, and I am here to testify in support of House Bill 290. I'm joined at the table by Jennifer Lahat, Commerce's Managing Director of Policy, Research, and Government Affairs, who can help answer any questions you all may have. We're also joined by my friend Kelly Schultz, the CEO of Maryland Tech Council, Tasha Cornish, Executive Director of the Cybersecurity Association, and John Fiastro of Fiastro Consulting. House Bill 290 is a departmental bill which alters the existing Buy Maryland Cybersecurity Tax Credit to make the program more effective. This program was initially established through legislation in 2018, and it offers tax credits to qualified Maryland companies that purchase cybersecurity technology and services from qualified Maryland cybersecurity companies. The goal being to support Maryland cybersecurity industry and to ensure Maryland businesses are cyber secure. So far, the program has been a modest success. Each year, an average of 38 buyers are awarded about $444,000 in credits for buying cybersecurity technologies and services from 12 sellers. But while the program has an annual cap of $4 million, only $3 million in credits have been issued over the entire lifetime of the program. We can do better. We need to do better. House Bill 290 proposes several changes to increase utilization of the program, including making the tax credit refundable so that nonprofits and businesses with no tax liability are incentivized by the program, eliminating the limit on the size of the company that can be considered a qualified buyer for the purpose of the tax credit, increasing the limit on annual revenue for a business to be considered a qualified seller for the purpose of the tax credit, increasing the amount of credits that can be claimed by a qualified buyer for purchases from a single qualified seller from $200,000 to $1 million, and finally, eliminating a requirement that some of the credit be awarded for the purchase of services and not products. We are also codifying the name we have been utilizing for the program, as well as the intent of the program, and we are proposing to add a sunset date as a built-in check to ensure that these reforms are effective. We expect to be back in a few years asking you to extend this successful program, but if these changes are not effective, then it may be best to allow the program to sunset. These proposals were developed in partnership with the Cybersecurity Association of Maryland and based on feedback from many of its members. We have also incorporated several recommendations from the Department of Legislative Services, which conducted a review of the program in 2023. House Bill 290 will help make the current underutilized program a more valuable resource for Maryland's cyber industry, and it will help more Maryland companies to ensure that their data and their customers' data is secure. We respectfully request a favorable report on House Bill 290. I'm grateful for your time, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Secretary. And Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for having us here today. My name is Kelly Schultz, and I am the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council. And on behalf of our over 800 members, we are pleased to join the Department of Commerce in support of their departmental bill, HB 290. Maryland's technology sector is a critical driver of our state's economy. It creates high-paying jobs, fuels innovation, and attracts global investment, from cybersecurity and defense technology to life sciences and data analytics. Our companies help keep Maryland competitive on the national and international stage. Small cybersecurity firms in particular are a cornerstone of this ecosystem. These companies often spin out of federal research, military service, and academic institutions, and they play a vital role in protecting our digital infrastructure, our businesses, and our government. Yet they face significant challenges as they grow, especially in today's economic climate. The cost of doing business in Maryland is already high. Rising labor costs, increasing rents, higher energy prices, and inflation drive operating expenses are putting real pressure on small and emerging companies. For many of these businesses, especially early-stage cybersecurity firms, every dollar matters. Policies that provide support and stability can be the difference between staying and growing in Maryland or relocating to a lower-cost state. HB 290 has a lot to offer, and I'll just say, as a person that had sat in the seat of the secretary in the past, the cyber program and the grant applications for the tax credits for that, they had a great start. And I think that over the course of the last several years, we've been able to look, and the department looked and gave their due diligence to how to be able to do it better. And I'm really impressed with this proposal, and I'm here as the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council, but also a very interested party in what the department is doing and helping to expand economic development and support House Bill 290, and ask for your support as well. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Tasha Cornish, and I am the Executive Director of the Cybersecurity Association. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of House Bill 290 today. We often think of cyber attacks as big business problems, but for a Maryland small business or nonprofit, as many of you can likely testify to, a single data breach can be an existential threat. These organizations handle sensitive customer data, donor information, and intellectual property, yet they often lack the IT budgets of global corporations. This bill ensures that these Main Street entities can afford the same high-level proprietary protections developed right here in our state. By codifying this program as the Buy Maryland Cybersecurity Tax Credit, the bill aligns our state's security needs with our economic development goals. These key changes remove growth barriers for buyers by eliminating the previous 50 employee limit for qualified buyers, which allows more Maryland entities to qualify for the credit, regardless of their staff size. It will support scalable local sellers. So the bill raises the revenue cap for qualified sellers from $5 million to $10 million, which allows our homegrown cyber firms to stay in the program longer as they scale and provide buyers with the mature, stable partners that they need. Additionally, it empowers the nonprofit sector by making the tax credit refundable, ensuring that Maryland nonprofits who pay no income tax but face significant cyber risk can finally receive a cash refund to offset the cost of these critical services. And it does also maximize program utility by increasing the aggregate credit cap for purchases from a single seller from $200,000 to $1 million to ensure the program is governed by the needs of the buyers and the quality of technology rather than individual seller caps. The legislation recognizes that a more secure Maryland is a more prosperous Maryland. We're joined today by a seller, Sean Levin, will come and from Avid Partners and talk more about his experience. But thank you for your time, and I urge a favorable.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is John Fiastro of Fiastro Consulting. I'm here on behalf of my client, the Cybersecurity Association. I would like to thank first the department, Secretary Coker and Jen Lahat for their work on the bill. Madam Chair, it would be inappropriate for me to enter the room, and while I'm acknowledging the Secretary and the department also, I would like to mention Mr. George Butler and his team at DLS, which drafted a December 2023 report, and a lot of the recommendations that were in the report on this cybersecurity tax credit are in the bill before this committee today. So we've had some time to work on it since December of 23, and we think the changes are strong and will bring increased usage to the credit. We are confident of that. SB 25 strengthens Maryland's cybersecurity posture by moving more buyers off the sidelines. These changes will nudge people, businesses, nonprofits to use the credit more than they have up to this point. So more importantly, the spending of the cybersecurity services will take place within state. These are state firms that are taking advantage of it, selling it. To be a qualified seller, you have to be a resident Maryland business. So we've heard time and again that cybersecurity is a priority of the administration in this General Assembly. And for that reason, we ask that this committee issue a favorable report on HB 290. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. I see a question from Delegate Patterson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for the report. I have a question with regards to a bracket that I'm noting. In number 3, on page 2, there's a bracket around minority-owned, women-owned. Is that an exclusion? And if so, is any consideration being given to minority-owned or women-owned businesses?
Thank you, Delegate, for that question. If you note a few, let's see, it's on page 2, right? Yep. A couple rows, or just above that, actually, we're also adding language in that is owned by an individual or group of individuals who belong to a group that historically has been deprived of access to normal economic or financial resources.
Excuse me, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Just above those brackets is language that we are adding into the statute. We're essentially rewording that portion of the want while keeping the intent the same, but it was language that was flagged as a concern that we don't want to draw any attention and potential legal challenges to the program due to the fact that minority-owned and women-owned are included in there as an eligibility, not requirement, but as a means of eligibility. So we have reworded that section of the statute with the language that's above.
Does this eliminate the fact that there are not enough women or minority-owned businesses relative to cybersecurity?
This does not change anything with regard to the ability for minority-owned and women-owned businesses to qualify as a qualified seller through the program. We're just changing that wording of it to be the group of individuals belong to a group that historically has been deprived of access.
Okay. For clarity, when you say we, is this a department or are you following federal guidelines?
It's the department opted to make this change based on the recommendation of council.
Thank you very much. And I just want to go on record to say that it is really critical that the representation of women and minorities be included and that we continue to do as much as we can for that to be represented in our Department of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate Patterson. We'll go to Delegate Bernice Mericu North next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to give you all the opportunity to respond to the only unfavorable I see here regarding the refundable tax credit not having oversight or fiscal exposure. Can you explain, your response to that? Yeah, and generally the feedback regarding lack of safeguards and mechanisms by making it refundable?
I'm sorry, was that unfavorable testimony?
Yeah, unfavorable testimony from the, I'm sorry, let me get the source, Maryland Society of Accounting and Tax Professionals. They say that expanding the refundable tax credit without corresponding safeguards or enhanced review mechanisms, it significantly expands the tax credit without the corresponding safeguards or enhanced review mechanisms, removing the expert panel, increasing credit caps, and making the credit refundable raises concerns about program oversight and fiscal exposure.
I haven't seen the testimony, so I can't fully speak to it, but I will say the department does have other tax credits that are refundable tax credits, and I mean, my understanding and belief with those is that there is oversight on the side of the comptroller's office in administering those.
Sure.
And with regard to the expert review panel, that has not been utilized through the lifetime of the program. It is in there as something that the department could establish. We did not establish that. And so we're moving that just due to the fact that we don't feel as though it was a necessary part of administering the program.
Okay, yeah, if you have more after reading the unfavorable, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you.
Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I do appreciate the department reads and takes seriously the evaluations that our experts in DLS do. So very much appreciative of you all bringing legislation forward. Mr. Secretary, I think you might have said in your testimony, did you say there were 12 qualified sellers currently? Did I catch that correctly?
There were 12 that have leveraged this program.
Leveraged
yes.
it, okay. And does the department have an estimate with the proposed changes in the bill of how many more sellers might be eligible with the increase in the cap and the elimination of the employee cap?
Do not have that estimate. Have to get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, to answer that question, I'm sorry. I think one of the biggest breaks for members of the association that we have here is the increase between $5 and $10 million in sales. While that may sound like a lot of money, their margins are tighter in this industry, and so what actually comes home is not as much as one might expect. So a jump between 5 and 10 is a dramatic increase in the number of firms that would be eligible to take advantage as a qualified seller. So at this point, Delegate, it's difficult to quantify exactly how many we can expect, but we were kind of counting how many angels could tap dance on the top of a pin when it comes to firms under $5 million. This bill, that $5 million threshold was established when the credit was established. We all know that things cost dramatically more now. It's appropriate to raise it to kind of reflect the changes in terms of inflation. And we hope to have more of our members come here and utilize the credit. And that's one of the reasons why the association's worked on it.
And thank you. I want to add to Delegate Polakovich-Carr, and we really appreciate you taking a look at the feedback and the report and working to bring legislation that is based on that. I do have a question about the bill. It seems with us increasing it to the 10 million, as Mr. Fiastro just mentioned, as well as the fact that the single qualified seller will go from $200,000 limit to $1 million limit. It does sound like we are expanding this to really big, high revenue companies who perhaps have a little bit more of the wherewithal in terms of purchase power. And I know that we want to incentivize them purchasing in Maryland and with Maryland companies, but I just want you to comment on the state resources. It feels a bit like we're providing it to the companies that have sort of that high revenue, high dollar, very large companies. And I just want you to comment on that, as well as with it being, I understand that our annual money appropriated to this is $4 million annually. And so if we raise it to $1 million, then that could be potentially 4 companies that this goes to. So you can comment on both of those. I just want to make sure I explore and understand.
So I think as the committee reads the bill, there's a qualification set for buyers and there's a qualification set for sellers. Up to this point, there have been kind of 2 chokeholds on the qualification set for buyers. The first is the 50 employee cap, which is kind of arbitrary, doesn't really speak to the overall revenues of the buyer. The second is the fact that the credit up to this point has been a traditional credit and not a non-refundable credit. The non-refundable credit should encourage nonprofits to come in and take advantage of it. So you have an increase of the pool of buyers. There are relaxations in terms of the qualified sellers, and that's the firms that are registered with the department, credentialed by the department to sell the credit, to sell products that would benefit, products and services that would be tolerated under the credit. There has been about maybe 10% use of the overall credit. We'd like to see that fully used at this point. We think that these changes do that. We also, and to answer your question of, would there be oversubscription? I'll defer to the department about safeguards of oversubscription on that, Madam Chair.
One thing I will note is so we are increasing the cap on how much can be purchased through one specific seller, but the credit amount is 50% of the cost of the purchase. So it is possible, yes, that this could be then limited to essentially 8 purchases if someone is hitting that $1 million cap. But we also, I think, are, to Mr. Fiastro's point, we're looking to increase the utilization. If we find that we've loosened things too much and we need to scale it back a little bit more, we're very open to, when we come back with that sunset date in a few years, making adjustments if they're necessary. I believe this one is structured as a first come, first serve tax credit. So we would hit that $4 million cap and cut off any credits for the year and then wait until the next cycle to award more. But we are certainly open to talking through any adjustments that would be necessary, and especially if there are any at this point that would make the committee more comfortable if we overshot a little bit and want to scale it back some.
Okay, thank you. We did have an additional person on your panel. I don't know if they're here today. Mr. Sean Levin. Okay, so why don't we have you, if the rest of the panel can stay up, and we just want to make sure we get your testimony and give you an opportunity. We'll just make, if one person can step back, we'll hear from Mr. Levin and see if there's any additional questions, and then we'll end this bill hearing.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you for all the work you do to support us as a Maryland company and the community. My name is Sean Levin, founder and president of Avid Practice, a Maryland-based IT and cybersecurity firm serving Maryland since our formation in 2003. We are a qualified seller under the Buy Maryland Cybersecurity Program, currently supporting more than 20 nonprofits and 75 small businesses statewide. As a qualified seller, we've witnessed its direct, ongoing positive impact with our clients. I support HB 290 because the current credit structure excludes organizations that face the same cybersecurity risks but cannot access the credit. The 3 barriers, as we've discussed: first, the credit is non-refundable. Nonprofits pay no income tax, so they receive no benefit. Second, the 50-employee cap excludes growing Maryland employers. This includes clients such as a 125-employee nonprofit serving young adults with autism, a 120-employee Maryland manufacturer, and a 70-employee uniform supplier for police and fire agencies. All are excluded not because they don't need cybersecurity, but because they created jobs. Third, vendor caps force successful Maryland cybersecurity providers out of the program, creating uncertainty that delays or cancels purchasing decisions, or worse, loss of a reliable, trusted vendor partner. Without reform, nonprofits defer security investments. Many are simultaneously facing reductions in federal and other grant funding, further limiting their ability to invest in cybersecurity. Providers like us absorb costs to protect them anyway. We prevented attacks and provided remediation, but charity is not policy, it's not scalable, and it's not durable. HB 290 fixes these problems: refundable credits, removal of the employee cap, and higher thresholds, so the program functions as intended. I pledge to help Maryland buyers and qualified sellers fully utilize this credit so it delivers measurable cybersecurity outcomes. I respectfully urge a favorable report on HB 290.
All right, thank you so much for your testimony. Seeing no additional questions from my colleagues, that ends the bill hearing on House Bill 290. Thank you again for your time, and great to see you, Mr. Secretary, and our former colleague and former secretary, Ms. Schultz. Good to see you. All right, we'll start the next bill hearing. Delegate Naraki, House Bill 89, Baltimore County Inspector General Authority over Baltimore County Public Schools.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, Madam Vice Chair, I don't see her, but other members of the committee, it's good to see y'all. For the record, I am Delegate Ryan Araki, and I'm requesting a favorable report on HB 89. It is the Baltimore County Inspector General Authority over Baltimore County Public Schools bill. Last year, the Baltimore County Council approved Resolution 4025 with an overwhelming bipartisan majority to support a request for state authorization to expand the Baltimore County Office of the Inspector General's jurisdiction to include oversight of Baltimore County Public Schools, or BCPS. This bill would simply enable the County Council, the Baltimore County Council, to expand the Office of the Inspector General as they requested. At its core, this legislation is about giving tools, not mandates. It does not dictate how the county must act. Rather, it enables local leaders to decide how to structure the Inspector General's office to best serve the community. This bill does not automatically expand the Inspector General's oversight. The council will have the final say on broadening the jurisdiction as they requested. As the Baltimore County Council Chair Mike Hertel stated in his testimony in support of the legislation, the passage of this legislation is important to enable the Baltimore County Inspector General to provide more direct accountability and oversight of the public school system in the same manner as the other county agencies and departments already have. This proposal also reflects feedback from many Baltimore County residents who are seeking reassurances that public institutions are operating transparently and responsibly. As the League of Women Voters has said, this change will help strengthen operations, protect resources, and rebuild public trust at a time when concerns have been raised about how education dollars are managed. While BCPS has internal auditors, they are not investigators. One of the primary differences between auditors and investigators is the subpoena power granted to investigators. This tool allows investigations to be more thorough and comprehensive, since the Inspector General can access documents and testimony outside of BCPS. An Inspector General operating independently from BCPS can help reinforce trust in county government, school leadership, teachers, and staff by ensuring that concerns are examined fairly and comprehensively. Transparency not only protects taxpayers, but also the many dedicated professionals who work every day on behalf of Baltimore County's students. This is why this bill has the support of the Teachers Association of Baltimore County, or TABCO, as well. They have said, and I agree, that every dollar that does not properly advance student learning goals and student needs is wasted. Another key distinction between the Inspector General's role and auditors lies in public disclosure. Unlike internal audits, the Office of the Inspector General is required to make its findings available to the public. This openness allows residents to understand better how decisions are made and how resources are used, fostering informed civic engagement and public confidence. Some have argued that expanding the authority to the Baltimore County Inspector General's office is redundant and unnecessary, as the Maryland Office of the Inspector General has an Inspector General for Education. The Inspector General for Education, Rick Henry, disagrees with that assertion, as he stated in his testimony regarding the bill. The Montgomery County Inspector General's office has jurisdiction over Montgomery County Public Schools, or MCPS, as this legislation would authorize. Mr. Henry stated that the dual roles of the IGs have never hampered an investigation, but have enhanced outcomes by holding accountable those who commit fraud, waste, and abuse. Local and state oversight can and should work together to provide effective governance. A concern also raised regarding this legislation is the cost of implementation. The county has said that it could cost an additional $800,000 a year to accommodate additional staff and office expenses. There is no question that additional staff costs money. However, this does not also account for potential savings that may occur from the office. In Montgomery County, the Inspector General's 2025 annual report, and she highlighted in that report that $18.1 million in question costs were found in just 1 year in MCPS. These are real dollars, and the possibility for similar enhanced accountability in Baltimore County may also exist. With the proposed fiscal year 27 BCPS budget of over $2.49 billion, significant oversight is required to ensure that tax dollars are spent efficiently and effectively. And this legislation supports that mission. Accountability and transparency are nonpartisan issues, and this legislation is an essential, actionable step in support of transparency and effective governance in Baltimore County. And I would simply ask for a favorable report, Madam Chair. And I will be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Delegate. We have a question from Delegate Ebersol.
Madam Chair, and just for perspective here, what you're suggesting is that county government be allowed to approve a county agency to oversee the state agency of the state board. Is that correct?
Sorry, I wanted to call you Mr. Chair because of from being
Not today.
Sorry, Delegate. What I'm suggesting is that we should place Baltimore County in a similar.
That's not my question. My question is it a county agency that would be approved by the county government, and that agency would then be overseeing a state agency? The school board is a state agency. Is that what you're suggesting? Yes,
Mr. Chair. Mr. Delegate. I'm sorry. Madam Chair, I'm sorry for making that mistake twice. Yes, Delegate Ebersol. That is what this would do.
Delegate, is this a bill that is or will be voted on by your delegation?
Madam Chair, it will be. It has not been heard yet. It will be heard tomorrow in our delegation. So that's why I think that's why we're in the posture here of not having some more clarity from the delegation yet. I pre-followed it and we got a little ahead of our skis here, but it is being heard tomorrow in Baltimore County delegation.
Great. Please do keep us updated on that vote.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you so much. Any other questions, colleagues? Delegate Pastor.
For clarity, thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarity, thank you, Delegate Naraki, for bringing this here. So you pointed out that the union TABCO also has this, but TABCO says that it is to have full oversight of the budget. Are you suggesting that this person would be over the internal audit office, or is it over the budget that the superintendent presents? Because those are different.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you, Delegate, for the question. So this bill doesn't really speak to that. It allows the Baltimore County Council to make that determination as to how they would structure the office. It just simply responds to their request for that a potential expanded authority for the office there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Seeing no other questions, that ends the bill hearing on House Bill 89. Thank you so much, Delegate. We will now go to House Bill 96. Delegate Phillips, Baltimore County School Board Nominating Commission Membership Alterations.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Feels good to say that. And good afternoon to the members of Ways and Means. My bill is a whole lot simpler. So good afternoon, members of Ways and Means. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I am Delegate N. Scott Phillips from the 10th Legislative District of Baltimore County. Thank you for, of course, your hard work. I'm here to testify in support of House Bill 96, which updates the Baltimore County School Board Nominating Commission. This legislation is straightforward, but a vital measure centered on modernization, representation, and operational stability by ensuring the body responsible for vetting our school board members accurately reflects our local stakeholders. We strengthen the foundation of our entire school system. The bill primarily focuses on expanding the commission from 19 to 21 members to include 2 vital and currently underrepresented perspectives, ASME Local 3 and the Citizens Advisory Council for Gifted and Talented Education. Adding these seats ensures that our hardworking school support staff and the families of students with specialized learning needs have a direct voice in the leadership selection process. Additionally, the bill includes a necessary technical update to formally recognize the Greater Baltimore County Chamber of Commerce, ensuring our legislative language remains accurate and current with the local business community's branding. In essence, there's a new name and a new organization representing the Baltimore County Chamber. Beyond just membership, House Bill 96 addresses the long-term health of the commission by establishing a staggered transition plan for member terms, expiring in either 2028 or 2030. This structural change is critical for maintaining institutional knowledge and preventing the brain drain that occurs when an entire body turns over at the same time. By implementing these staggered cycles, we ensure organizational continuity while firmly upholding the Commission's mandate to reflect the geographic and racial diversity of Baltimore County. This is a common sense update that fosters a more inclusive, professional, and stable nominating process. And I respectfully urge a favorable report on House Bill 96, and I thank you. And I would just add, the nominating commission process in Baltimore County is something that I wasn't truly familiar with, but I want to share the story. I think it is important to have transparency and to have people at the table of various backgrounds to participate in this process. I was actually a candidate for a school board many, many years ago. My name was submitted to this group. I interviewed before the group, and it just went away. I never knew what happened. Later, I learned my name was submitted to the governor, and I was not told that my name was submitted to the governor. The governor did not select me, also did not select the other person that was submitted. He reached out and got a third name, but we never knew. I think this process of putting the right people on the board and having a fair review by those citizens in our county is extremely important. With that, I ask you for a favorable report.
Thank you, Delegate. I don't see any questions, so that ends the hearing on House Bill 96.
No other?
Oh, did you, we don't have anyone signed up.
Okay,
on
no
here.
problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think I see the sponsor of House Bill 75. Is Delegate Fisher here for House Bill 201?
Somebody in a blue sweater's trying to get your attention back.
Someone's trying. I'm sorry? Oh, he's on his way. Okay. Well, we'll come back to him. I see. Well, I will do my bill, I think, while we wait. So, calling up House Bill 29, myself, Delegate Wilkins, County Boards of Education, Post-College and Career Readiness Pathways, Payment of Costs, which we'll do after House Bill 75. Come on up, Delegate. All right.
Graciousness and letting me jump up here. I was just in the process of testifying over in judiciary, so. Thank you very much, members of the Ways and Means Committee. For the record, John Carden here again on to what I've said is my second favorite committee in the whole world. And if you ask me what my first is, I always keep my options open. So this, you can take that for what it's worth. You've heard this bill many times before. For those of you who are new to this committee, this is simply what I would call a parity bill. Because of some political shenanigans that happened back in like 2007, 2008, the way to get video lottery terminals and gambling into the state of Maryland was to pass an amendment that prohibited license holders of video lottery terminals from making political contributions. That law has not yet been tested, but it would probably be deemed unconstitutional if it was tested. And there is no reason why we should treat license holders of video lottery terminals, treat them any different than any other business owner or any other gambling license holder in the state of Maryland. So this bill simply just creates, gets rid of that prohibition. I originally drafted it years ago to make all gaming license holders prohibited, but then I thought that's really making more unconstitutional law. So I decided to change it to make it all permitted, and that's the essence of the bill. You guys have passed this now, how many years in a row? And it actually passed both houses last year and then got pulled out in a conference committee on Sine Die last year. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate, for bringing this bill. Delegate Buckle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to clarify what you said. Are you familiar with any other industry that is barred, including the ChatGPT ad industry, or any other industries barred from making political contributions in the state of Maryland?
Now, thank you for the leading question, and no.
So opioid manufacturers, bail bondsmen, no other type of business in the state, regardless of how people may feel about them, are barred from participating in the political process through campaign contributions.
Even lobbyists are permitted to.
Even lobbyists, even if they don't want to, they're
Even
allowed to.
if they don't want to, they're allowed to.
And
there's
you know,
no other industry that's
Right.
prohibited.
I won't profess to have voluminously read or been an expert in the Supreme Court's campaign finance decisions over the last 15 or 20 years, but it seems to me that all of them stand for one principle, which is that you cannot, since Citizens United till now, they have said you cannot regulate campaign spending without regulating political speech, that the regulation has to be at the very margins, that it is political speech. Is that fair?
That is fair. There is, Citizens United is a little tricky, but yes, I mean, they have ruled that you cannot hamper political speech through denying people the ability to make contributions. There are limitations, and you guys are far more familiar with this, Madam Chair, than many of the rest of us. Although I did this was in my previous life. When I was here on this committee, I dabbled in that. But yes, there is, the Supreme Court has said you are allowed to do it. You cannot deny people that. There are limitations and ways to stop. And in fact, there's going to be legislation that I hopefully will be supporting that will help redefine corporations so that Citizens United may be curtailed, but that's a whole nother story. In this particular case, for this particular issue, this is one industry that is being treated different than any other industry, any other individual as defined in the law. That is just, there's just no reason why that should be the case. And by the way, this is going to help the Committee of Jurisdiction over Gaming, not the Committee of Jurisdiction over Criminal Law and Civil Law. I can guarantee you that. So in terms of campaign finance. But be that as it may, I just happen to believe philosophically that this is the right thing to do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Delegate. Seeing no other questions, that ends the hearing on House Bill 75. Next up, Delegate Fisher, House Bill 201, Income Tax Tips or Gratuities, Subtraction Modification.
Good afternoon, members of the esteemed Ways and Means Committee. For the record, Delegate Mark Fisher for House Bill 201, titled Income Tax Tips or Gratuities Subtraction Modification, otherwise known as the No Taxes, Income Taxes on Tips Act. The bill allows a subtraction modification against the personal income tax for any compensation received in the form of a tip or gratuity for employment in a food facility, employment in a business license for on-sale consumption of alcoholic beverages, employment in a hotel, providing passenger for hire services, or providing taxi cab services. Pretty straightforward bill. You don't pay taxes, income taxes on your tips. Just a quick story about this. When I went to college, like most people that go to college, you're a poor college student. And I got a job at what was called the American Cafe in Georgetown, which was this cool restaurant. I was lucky enough to get one there. And it was the way that I was able to go home every day with some cash to be able to pay for food and other stuff while I was in college, because my parents were like, it's all up to you. You got to figure it out. You have to pay for it yourself. It was a huge difference, Obviously today, people don't pay with cash primarily when they tip, they put it on the credit card. But a lot of people don't know this. The waiter or bartender or any member of the staff there, when they receive that tip via credit card, they are given that cash at the end of the shift. And they go home with that, and it's super meaningful when you're a waiter. Because you need that cash that day to be able to literally many times pay for food, or pay your electricity bill, or energy costs, or gas for your car, or rent. All those things really matter, and it was super meaningful to me when I worked at a restaurant. I know it would be meaningful today. It's my understanding this bill would have a nexus impacting potentially 140,000 people in the state of Maryland, the people that need it the most, at a time when affordability literally is the issue. And I say this, I give you my story because not only is it a true story, but it's more of a true story for more people now than ever. The inability to be able to afford everyday items, and I think that these are the people that we want to help the most. Obviously, there's the big, beautiful bill. A lot of people don't like it just because they don't like the president, but the fact of the matter is, it is well-meaning to the folks in this industry for affordability. Also, I thought it was interesting, I thought you guys would appreciate, the fiscal note writer, for whatever reason, again, these are folks that work really hard in DLS, but the fiscal note writer put, there's the small business effect, there's none. Yes, taxes on tips go to the employees who go home and take, the cash that they made that day in tips with them. But clearly, if you're not paying taxes on tips, it's going to attract more people into the industry to work as a waiter, to work as a busboy. And by the way, if you don't know this, if you've never worked in the industry, if you're a waiter, you always tip out to the busboy or you tip out to the bartender. And so it really is, I think, a nonpartisan bill. Does it have an impact on the state's finances? Yes, it does. But you know whose finances it has more of an impact on? The people who earn the money. For all those reasons, Madam Chairwoman, I leave you with this bill in your hands.
Thank you so much, Delegate, for bringing the bill. Delegate Hartman with the first question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for bringing the bill. And I'm sure everyone can assume that we'd love tax credits. So, it's interesting to hear you say this. Reading the bill, it looks like it's maxed at like $25,000 of income, so it's not, if that server's making, working in a nice restaurant or something, making $80,000 a year, it would only apply to their first $25,000 of income.
So the way we had asked for the bill to be drafted is to not have a limitation on these. We decided to limit who it would affect, but not limit the tips. That was the goal, certainly of the bill. Obviously, the committee can do as it wishes. But
so it's open-ended. So if somebody's making $50,000 a year in tips,
yeah,
which is very possible.
Yeah.
Then you're saying that $50,000 wouldn't be taxed.
Yes, Delegate Hartman. I mean, a great example would be, for example, the Chop Tank restaurant. What an amazing job they've done, right? What an amazing crab cake. Because I was a waiter, because I'm in business and so forth, not in the restaurant business, but in a different business, for the record. It's very common for someone working at the Chop Tank to easily go home with $500, $600, $700 a shift. But naturally, it's all paid on credit card, and they're, and they need that money. It's not an easy job, as you all know. It's backbreaking. It's hard on your feet.
So I understand what you're saying, but how do you pick this profession? I mean, sure, we all enjoy going out to eat. How do you pick this profession to be the winner when, you have firemen that are protecting your community, people that need the money, young families? This wouldn't apply to them, right? Because they're not getting tipped, they're getting a salary. But they need that money as well.
That's correct. Well, I guess you could put that bill in.
How about the police officer that's protecting your neighborhood? How about the person that's doing backbreaking work of picking up the garbage for your community? They need that money too, but they're not included in this bill. So help me understand what makes you think this profession is the one that we should be picking as the winner, and all these other hard working.
Sure, I think that's a good question. The reason I picked this profession, actually it's a series of professions, is because these are people that are doing it because they need cash that second, they need cash that day. Waiters, for example, and waitresses need cash that day. People who drive Ubers need cash that day. People who, of course, drive taxis, the same thing applies. So, bartenders need cash that day. That's why they're doing it. They literally are doing those jobs. Whereas in the other jobs that you defined, Those are actual jobs where people are unsalaried, and they generally speaking are pretty well-paid jobs. Now, I'm sure the police officers in most of our counties want to be paid more, and it's certainly understandable. But it's not quite the same thing. These are people living from paycheck to paycheck and that are waiting tables. They're in school, or they're single moms. And I think that that's the reason why I made the distinction. And it's a principled reason. It's a very principled reason because of my own personal history. My wife was also a waitress as well. We actually met each other at the American Cafe in Georgetown. So something that we both understand.
I'm a little torn here. My daughter was a server and my son's a fireman. So I don't know. I have to look at both sides of it. I know they're both young families struggling. And there are paid advance loans, right? So if you need cash that day, well, I forget the commercial had a pretty good jingle, but I think you can get.
Yeah, you mean the payday loans that you pay like 100% in interest rate? Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Thank you for the bill.
Thank you. Next up, Delegate Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you, Delegate
My
Fisher.
favorite delegate.
Oh, I'm gonna
like your
put
bill,
that up
by
on a
the way.
plaque. Delegate Fisher's favorite delegate. I want to start by. I want to just start by saying I'm not necessarily opposed to the bill, and I share your concern for the financial well-being of working families here in the state of Maryland. I did hear you mention the congressional budget bill earlier, and something that I find interesting in your concern for the financial well-being of working families is that, yes, this no tax on tips sounds in line with what we saw in the federal bill. The federal bill also gutted SNAP benefits and Medicaid on top of the cuts to ACA subsidies that we're seeing. And if you look at some of the workers that you're concerned about, right, bartenders, 23% rely on Medicaid approximately, 5% rely on ACA subsidies, 15% rely on SNAP benefits, taxi drivers, 33% on Medicaid, 6% on ACA subsidies, and 22% on SNAP benefits. So just want to make the point, I hope you share my concern that those cuts are going to be more harmful to those working families than any legislation around no tax on tips could be helpful to those families.
I guess there are a series of bills in the legislature as we speak that we'll be debating, as you know, that kind of concern this issue. At the moment in the state of Maryland, there's a massive fraud scandal going on in the SNAP program. And those are federal taxpayer dollars that have flowed to Maryland. And I believe that there are enormous amounts of fraud going on in many of these programs. Now, the interesting thing is, and this is important, and this really is a bipartisan issue, we should all want to cut fraud, waste, and abuse, which is what I think the intent is at the federal level. But we should also be willing at the same time to still fulfill our promises to the public, especially feeding those who need to be fed. And as a conservative, that's why I put in this bill, because this bill helps people to keep more of their own money so they can feed themselves. So it's a principled bill. And believe me, I understand what you're saying. But for every dollar that is stolen in the SNAP program, that's a dollar that should be going to the person that actually needs it.
Yeah, I will just add there's no evidence that those cuts were based on fraud. They were going to be gutting to those families that you're concerned about. So I just wanted to see if we shared that concern. Thank you.
There are 2 whistleblowers who were fired by the administration in Maryland SNAP program. So I would think that there's a lot more there.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Buckle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We hear a lot of tax bills, and very rarely does the Maryland Society of Accounting and Tax Professionals weigh in against these bills, but they did against this one. And I give you an opportunity to respond because I think you hinted at it in response to some questions from Delegate Hartman. The bill's not drafted to conform with the federal act. And they think that's a major red flag. And it says, as drafted, the bill creates unequal tax treatment among workers earning similar total compensation and incentivizes compensation restructuring to minimize state tax liability. It also says tip income would remain taxable at the federal level while being excluded for Maryland purposes, requiring separate tracking, withholding adjustments, and reconciliation. Cash-based tip income is already difficult to verify, and this divergence increases the risk of underreporting and noncompliance for both employers and employees. Then also in the fiscal analysis, they say that the average tax break for the average waiter, waitress, or individual covered would be about $150 a year. And there's an inference that the tax compliance would cost those people $150 a year. They'd have to go because they're you're a very smart guy. Normally, you want to file your federal return and then just pass that AGI number to your state return so you don't have to redo it. Your bill would create the need to have to redo it. Is there a reason for that you don't want it to conform with the federal law?
I would love for it to conform with federal law. I just don't think that this legislature is going to do that. And in a perfect world, that's, of course, what I would want to see. Instead, I put a bill in that is, I guess, more modest and more straightforward. And I did read the testimony. They put the same testimony in last year. Obviously, not all peoples in the state who work in different professions have the same issues. And it goes back to the exact same comment that I made earlier. Namely, that as a waiter or waitress or a busboy or bartender or hotel busboy or so forth, all the way down all the service industries, these are individuals that need the cash today. And that's what makes them super unique. That's why they're doing it, largely, and they need the flexibility in their professions. And so in as much as the accountants, I get what they're saying, if they were really trying to help the situation, I think we should have a much simpler tax code where the state of Maryland's tax code actually comported with the feds.
So your perspective, they need the cash today, if I'm understanding correctly, would be when they get paid out their tips because people put them on credit cards. Credit cards are ubiquitous. My friend Delegate Wims has a bill to make everybody take cash, which I kind of like. Yeah, but everybody uses their, I'm not allowed to say that out loud, though. Please retract that from the record. So, yeah, too late. So is that your position, is that when the employer says, hey, here's your share of tips for today, but we withheld your taxes, that they need that money today?
Precisely.
They don't do, because if you get the cash, you're not getting a $10 bill and saying, let me run down to the tax guy and put $1.50 to him. You're just keeping the cash, and then you reconcile quarterly or yearly like the rest of us that have to file that way.
It's a great point. I mean, again, when I was a waiter and then a bartender, that was when people did actually pay cash.
Right.
But everybody wants the points in their credit cards now, so naturally they use their credit cards, which is understandable. But because of that, there is a transaction that it's very easy for the IRS and for the state to follow. They can follow that very closely. Thus the need for the bill.
Right. Do people, and I'm honestly asking, do people get paid? I used to own, I never frankly worked in one for a very long time, but I used to own some food establishments or food and beverage establishments. I don't think we paid them on a daily basis from the credit card. So like if $1,000 rang in on credit cards and $150 of it was tips, I don't think that we went back and reconciled that at the end of the day. I think we did it either weekly or biweekly, whatever the pay period was. Mm-hmm. So is that your understanding of when the tax treatment? So it's not like I need the cash this afternoon, because if it's on a credit card, you're not going to get it until your pay period anyway, just like a normal worker.
Yeah, and my understanding is in the restaurant industry, and I know quite a few people in the industry, and as we all do, of course, in order to be able to coax people to actually work as a waiter or work as a bartender, I mean, obviously an incredibly difficult job, they want their tips that day paid out in cash. And as a general principle, that's what we're seeing happening. It's understandable. It's reasonable. This would make it easier to do that, per your point. It would make it easier because you no longer have a nexus for taxation for those tips.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues, and thank you, Delegate, for
I really
bringing
appreciate
the bill.
it. Appreciate the questions.
Thank you. That concludes our hearing on House Bill 201. Since Delegate Rogers is here, we'll go ahead and take House Bill 139. This one is titled Sales and Use Tax, Tax-Free Day, Veterans Day.
Thank you, Chair Wilkins and members of the mighty Ways and Means Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Mike Rogers, representing Legislative District 32, and I'm here to respectfully request a favorable report of House Bill 139. The purpose of this bill is to establish a sales tax-free day on Veterans Day for veterans who have served in the uniformed services of the United States. The relief would only apply if the taxable price of the item for sale is $2,000 or less. Furthermore, the comptroller maintains sole discretion to suspend the tax-free day if necessary. Within its border, Maryland has 20 military installations that make up a key part of the state's economy. According to the Maryland Department of Veterans and Military Families, Maryland is home to nearly 360,000 veterans and 100,000 active duty service members, reservists, National Guard, and dependents. A tax-free day on November 11th would not only provide a tangible benefit in the form of financial relief, but would also serve as a public acknowledgement of their service. It is a small yet powerful way to say thank you to our veterans, letting them know their sacrifices are recognized and valued. The concept of a tax-free day is not new to Maryland. Each year, the Comptroller's Office and numerous retailers successfully implement a tax-free week dedicated to supporting parents and teachers during the back-to-school season in August. Similarly, this bill could positively impact the economy by encouraging spending within our state. Veterans who might otherwise refrain from making certain purchases would be incentivized to spend more, knowing that they are exempt from sales tax on this day. The increase in spending would not only benefit the veterans, but also stimulate local businesses and, by extension, the state's economy. Maryland can do more for those who have sacrificed so much by serving. House Bill 139 represents an opportunity for Maryland to lead by example in showing gratitude to our veterans. With minimum fiscal impact, it's a practical measure that offers financial relief, stimulates the economy, and most importantly, serves as a symbol of our collective appreciation for those who have served with honor. House Bill 139 will also set Maryland apart in the region as the only state offering tax exemption for Maryland veterans. We can and we must do more by our brave men and women. I respectfully request a favorable report on House Bill 139.
Thank you, Delegate. I see a couple questions. We'll start with Delegate Long.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. My family always went into the PX and bought all their groceries and everything. It never dawned on me, do you pay state taxes when they go into a PX to pick up groceries and stuff? There's state tax?
In the PX, no. Okay. In the commissary, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm working on logistics here. You drew a comparison to this tax break to the tax-free school week. The tax-free school week is certain items on which we do not charge tax. And this would be certain individuals would not be taxed on, I don't know, gather almost any item in this particular case.
Under a certain dollar threshold.
Right. Now, I have another question about that. But for starters, how does one verify if you're a retailer that the person buying it is a veteran? Do you push a button? And how do we know for sure that there's efficacy in doing that? Have you heard from retailers about this at all?
So the first part of the answer to the first part of your question is ID. It's on state driver's license, and most veterans have some other form of identification, like an ID card.
Right, but they'll show that to the retailer. Right. And then it's up to the retailer to.
Exhibit A.
Right. That's almost my question. My question is, how does the retail verify that it's a veteran that they're giving this break to?
So
with the comptroller, for example,
through the identification that's provided, and then the second part of the question. Go ahead.
Are you saying the retailer is going to submit a copy of the ID to the comptroller? In other words, if I'm standing at the register and somebody shows me their card, mm-hmm. I'm going to enter a key somewhere that's going to say no tax on these items, right? So then I am at the person at the register becomes the person to vet whether or not, to determine whether or not this tax break should be offered. But there's no further indication of that, right? So we're counting on them to be the agent of whether or not the tax is applied.
Similar to the way they do for school week in the second week of August?
I submit it's not similar. The actual store puts in that when these items are registered, they are then not taxed. It's not for the person at the register to decide. There's a class of items on which there's no tax done, and that's part of the program for that week when they do that. but it wouldn't be automatic in this case. Certain items would not be taxed only because the person standing at the register has verified that they are a uniform veteran. But it would be up to me at the register. I would become the arbiter of whether or not to do that. Okay, I would comment that's a lot of responsibility for these people, and also the efficacy of that might be in question. So thanks.
Okay, and then to answer the second part of your question, we have a letter of support, and I might note there was no letters of opposition from the Maryland Retailers Alliance in support of this legislation.
I'll take a look for that. Thank you.
So that was the answer to the second part of your
question. And the second question was on $2,000. If this does get done, if you buy something worth $2,000.72, do you get no tax break, or is the tax all the way up to $2,000 and then the tax break tail stops?
So that's my understanding is it's less than $2,000. So $2,000.72 is greater
The
than
entire
$2,000.
purchase cost would be taxed.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, delegates. Seeing no other questions, this ends the hearing on House Bill 139. We will take my bill now, House Bill 29, and then we'll get into some of our bills that have sponsors. I see you here, Delegate Metzger. Thank you for waiting patiently. Let's go ahead and start that hearing. Delegate Patterson is going to preside. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are now ready to hear House Bill 29. Delegate Wilkins. I will also note this is a sponsor-only bill.
Good afternoon, colleagues. For the record, I am Delegate Janelle Wilkins, representing District 20, and I am pleased to present House Bill 29, County Boards of Education Post-College and Career Readiness Pathways, Payment of Costs. As we all know and recall from yesterday's very robust blueprint for Maryland's future briefing, the third pillar of the blueprint focuses on college and career readiness. The blueprint CCR goal is for all students enrolled in public school to meet the college and career readiness standard before the end of 10th grade and no later than the time that the student graduates from high school. The blueprint also ensures equitable access to college and career readiness at an equal rate regardless of race, income, and other factors. Once a student is designated as meeting or exceeding the college and career readiness standard, they have access to college and career readiness pathways at no cost to any student. These pathways include things like college prep programs, like the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, AP courses, and other pathways to further enrich and prepare them for college and career. While it is very important that costs not be a barrier to student participation in these CCR programs, my bill ensures that for families that can afford these programs, that they're paying for a portion of the program or the entire program. It ensures that students who are 400% of the poverty line, the federal poverty level guidelines, are able to participate in these programs at no cost. So those who are lower income still continue to participate at no cost, while also allowing counties to establish income guidelines for other students. Part of the reason I've brought this bill is because Montgomery County has indicated paying over $1 million for these programs. And while it is wonderful that we cover everyone, we do know that some families are able to cover those costs. And for those that are, we would like to provide the opportunity for counties to right-size the income levels so that those families do pay into it. So this is a cost saver for our counties and for the state as we're continuing to implement the blueprint while also making sure that we have equitable access. I urge a favorable report on House Bill 29 and look forward to taking any questions.
All right, thank you, Delegate Wilkins. Are there any questions? If not, thank you for the presentation and thank you, colleagues. We will now proceed with House Bill 116, Delegate Miller.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Ways and Means Committee. For the record, I am Delegate April Miller, here to present House Bill 116. Many of you might not know this, but as a former member of the Frederick County Board of Education and a parent, I believe the foundation of a successful school system is trust. However, trust cannot exist in a vacuum. Trust starts with transparency, which is a core function of public governance. Currently, local school systems enter into significant procurement contracts and memoranda of understanding that shape everything from curriculum, resources, to student data privacy. Yet, for the average parent or taxpayer, finding the details of these agreements is often like searching for a needle in a haystack. House Bill 116 is a simple, common-sense transparency measure to bring these documents into the light. This bill requires local school systems to report and publish procurement contracts and MOUs on their public websites. Why is this necessary? I believe if they sign it, that you should, if you sign it, that they should see it. This promotes fiscal responsibility. Taxpayers have a right to know how their hard-earned tax dollars are being spent. When a school system signs a multi-million-dollar contract for a new software or services, that contract should be accessible for public review, and at that high a level, it usually is, somewhere. But transparency shouldn't depend on a dollar amount. Are we saying that school systems should only be transparent with spending over $25,000 or $50,000 or $75,000 or $100,000, and who cares about the rest? Of course not. That's ridiculous. These are public dollars, and school system budgets are difficult enough to follow and understand. Families and taxpayers should not have to do a Freedom of Information request to find out who is doing business with their school system. To even file an MPIA, a parent would have to know terminology or entities to search for, and how would they get this information? The bill also promotes parental engagement. Many MOUs involve third-party organizations that interact with our students. Parents deserve to know what organizations are operating within our schools and what the specific terms of those partnerships are. This is especially true now that we have community schools with many different outside groups and healthcare systems that have direct access to our children. It also provides consistency. While some counties are very proactive, others are not. House Bill 116 creates a uniform standard across Maryland so that transparency isn't determined by your zip code. Take a moment to look up your school system. Just pull up their website and search the word contracts. I specifically would encourage you to also look at Montgomery County Public Schools and Anne Arundel County Public Schools. It should be very easy to add into their existing resources that they already have online. So I want to be very clear. This bill is not about adding a heavy administrative burden, nor is it about control. It doesn't restrict contracts or local authority, and absolutely does not require the disclosure of legally confidential agreements. It is about digital housekeeping, proactive digital disclosures. Most of these documents already exist in digital formats and are readily available. This legislation simply mandates they be organized and made available in a central, searchable location for the public. Transparency should be proactive and not request-driven. And in an era where we are asking for historic levels of funding for our schools through the blueprint, we must match that investment with historic levels of accountability. We cannot expect the public to buy into a system if they are locked out of the room where the deals are made. And I have a chart that actually shows all of the requested budgets of the school systems in the state. The superintendents just requested their budgets. And for my own county, we have just hit the $1 billion Ask Club. When I started in 2010 on the board, it was about $500 million. So it has doubled since then. And certainly our enrollment hasn't doubled, and a lot of counties actually have declining enrollment, yet skyrocketing budgets. So if we are asking for millions to billions of dollars in funding, don't you think we should provide a basic level of transparency? I do want to kind of quote from MABE, their testimony. It said, treating all procurement contracts and agreements as functionally equivalent ignores the reality of how school systems operate. These are public dollars. Do not confuse the amounts that are arbitrarily set to rise to a board-level reporting standards that is an operational choice, and it should not be based on a preference to make decisions in darkness to avoid transparency. Whether the contract is $1 or $100,000, the transparency should be the same. Marylanders are looking for real leadership that prioritizes clarity over complexity. And House Bill 116 ensures that our education system remains accountable to the people that it serves, the students, the parents, and the taxpayers. I have submitted an amendment to clarify the procurement contract language to better comply with the intent of this bill, as was pointed out in DLS in the fiscal note, and I appreciate their input. So I urge a favorable report for House Bill 116, and thank you. I'm very happy to take questions, but before I do, I just did want to say that I was very disappointed that Mabe made the choice to take a stand against transparency, especially in a time of repeat failed audits across multiple levels of Maryland state government, and including the January 2026 audit of the Maryland State Department of Education that did include references to local school systems. And I want to leave you with this quote, openness will strengthen our democracy and promote efficiency and effectiveness in government. And that was President Barack Obama. So transparency is bipartisan.
Thank you, Delegate. Let's go to Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate you bringing forward this bill and your expertise in your prior role as school board member. So is the opposition to the bill saying that it's too onerous, or are they saying that they just don't want to provide it?
It was a little bit of both.
Okay.
Honestly, from how I was reading it, some of it was too onerous, but they already have all those systems put in place.
Yes, I would make the argument that I'm assuming they know what dollars they're spending where.
Yes, I would certainly hope so. And from a budgeting perspective, we absolutely did. And you also know what MOUs you sign. You also know what kind of in-kind services you have.
Yeah, I'm assuming they memorialized that somewhere, and it's just a matter of sharing that with the public.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I mean, you can even look at, like I said, Anne Arundel County Public Schools, they even have, right on their website, like I said, these are probably organized by a dollar amount, but you click on it, it has the contract, it has everything on there. And again, if it's legally or impacts, for school safety, they don't have to provide that information. There can be things that are redacted, so.
Okay, so you're just looking for other jurisdictions to copy what's already being done.
Copy what's being done and then put it down to a dollar level, because usually when you are on a Board of Ed and you're approving fiscal transactions, usually they'll say, well, if they're under this amount, we really don't need board approval if it's under this amount. But that doesn't preclude the transparency piece, because when you have a contract that is at board level, you have the transparency. You have all the procurement information. You have all of that presented to you as a board, and then you vote on it. If it's under a certain level, and if they keep raising that level to $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, then you don't have that same level of transparency, and that's all we're searching for.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you are expert, and I appreciate that you.
I wouldn't say I'm a few years out, but thank you. I appreciate
Sorry,
that.
I declare it. It's true. I understand procurement, but can you give me a couple, if you possibly can, examples of organizations that a county government a school system would have MOUs with? So I have an idea where you are, what kind of things we're talking about making transparent there.
Yep. So we have all kinds of MOUs with anyone who would donate curriculum, donate any kind of curriculum resources. You could have MOUs with your local colleges, like for the dual enrollment piece, we would have an MOU. You would have an MOU with some of your outside organizations that are providing any kind of service or role to the, like I said, even down to your teacher trainings, all kinds of issues that you would have MOUs with.
Could they establish an MOU with a law enforcement agency if they chose to?
could they establish an MOU with, we have our school resource officers for the most part around, and those are hired through employee contracts with usually the local sheriff's office that they're doing with, or local, we have it with our city police also.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. We did have 2 people signed up for virtual testimony, but I don't believe we have them on.
Yeah,
So-
one had a meeting, I think, and the other was a school board member who got called into doing meetings today.
No problem.
Thank
Well,
you.
We appreciate them trying to participate. And with that, we will close out the hearing for House Bill 116. The next bill will be Delegate Patterson, House Bill 102, Education Dependent Children of Active Service Members, Advanced Enrollment Procedures. Oh, and Delegate, feel free to bring up your panel. I have here Jacob Livingston, Lindsay Livingston, and Christopher Arnold.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Wilkins and members of the Ways and Means Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Edith Patterson, and I'm the sponsor of House Bill 102, Education Dependent Children of Service Members, Advanced Enrollment Procedures. This bill is a reintroduction of legislation considered last session. It passed both House and the Senate with strong bipartisan support, but ultimately did not reach the governor's desk because it was caught up in conference at the end of the session. So please indulge me as I go through this again. I appreciate the opportunity to bring this important measure back before the committee. And how did we get started? I was approached by the Department of Defense, the DOD, to introduce this legislation as it is a product of a study that was conducted by the DOD Defense State Liaison Office in collaboration with the Clearinghouse for the Military Family Readiness at Penn State University. This evaluation involved extensive interviews with stakeholders at the national, state, and local levels to identify specific initiatives and policies to support military-connected students and their families. 4 initiatives were identified, but this legislation will only address one of them. And this is for the military families. Frequent relocations or permanent change of station present significant challenges to the families. These transitions can be particularly stressful for children who face disruptions to their education. A critical issue identified in this study was a lack of uniformity in implementing policies that support military families. Another was creating inconsistencies and confusion. Currently, many military families are unaware of advanced enrollment options, and discrepancies exist in how this process is understood and, more importantly, how it's implemented. School liaisons and personnel often lack adequate information, which exacerbates the stress and logistical challenges families face when relocating. And House Bill 102 aims to address these challenges by requiring the county superintendents of schools to allow dependent children of service members to enroll in schools within their jurisdiction before physically moving to the area. Specifically, there are 2. The legislation includes the following provisions. 1, streamlining the enrollment process so that local school systems must coordinate with parents or guardians of children, including children with disabilities, and the sending school district to prevent delays in enrollment or the transfer of educational services. That's really important. Another is increasing awareness. The legislation requires the Secretary of Veterans and Military Families, in consultation with relevant entities, to establish and maintain accessible information on school enrollment and related services for dependent children of service members. And there are several benefits that involve the families utilizing enrollment. Students have a better chance of selecting courses. Schools are more prepared to welcome incoming students, allowing them time to start learning without unnecessary delays. And students with disabilities, advanced enrollment enables schools to begin securing necessary support for services earlier, providing a stronger foundation for their success. So this bill received prior support, tremendous support now, if you look at the support letters, and we're offering an amendment to clarify implementation and ensure the bill is applied consistently as intended. So it's a straightforward bill. I would also offer that this could be a role model for the state because it's taking a vital step towards ensuring that Maryland stands in readiness and support of military families. And for those reasons, I request a favorable report.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of House Bill 102. My name is Lindsay Livingston. I serve as the Director of Communications, Outreach, and Advocacy for the Department of Veteran and Military Families. I'm also a military spouse. My husband has served in the Navy for more than 23 years, including 15 consecutive years of sea duty, and together we are raising 3 sons. Like many military families, we have moved frequently. On average, a military child changes schools 6 to 9 times during their K through 12 education. In just a moment, you'll hear from my oldest son, a 9th grader who is currently in his 6th school. Each move brings challenges: enrolling in a new school, transferring records, accessing support services, and navigating different state and district requirements. As a parent, these transitions are not only logistically difficult, they are emotionally exhausting. Military families should not have to fight to ensure their children can start school on time or receive services that they need. This bill offers a practical and simple solution. By allowing military families to remotely enroll their children before arriving to Maryland, it removes unnecessary barriers and helps children start school on time without disruption. Maryland is home to thousands of military families, and 23 states have already passed this legislation, making enrollment easier for military kids. When service members receive orders, they do not get to choose if or when they get to move, but states get to choose how well they will support the military families when they arrive. This bill sends a clear message that Maryland values military families and is committed to supporting their children. I respectfully ask for a favorable report.
Great.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of House Bill 102. My name is Jacob Livingston, and I'm a 9th grader at South River High School. I am a military kid, and like my mom said, my dad has served in the U.S. Navy for more than 23 years, and because of his service, my family has moved a lot. I am currently in my 6th school, and I'm only in 9th grade. Every time we move, school is the hardest part. You're the new kid again. You don't know the teachers, the rules are different, and sometimes you're not even sure what classes you'll be able to take until after school starts. That can be really stressful, especially when you're already leaving friends behind. One of the hardest parts is waiting for the paperwork, waiting to find out where you'll go to school, waiting to see if there's a space for you, and if you need extra support like special education services, that waiting can feel longer. House Bill 102 would make a real difference for kids like me. By allowing military families to enroll their kids in school before they arrive in Maryland, it gives us one less thing to worry about during a move. That means we can show up on day one knowing where we belong, what classes we'll be in, and that support will be there when we need it. Military kids don't choose to move, but we do our best to adapt. This bill helps make sure we don't fall behind just because our parents serve our country. Maryland has the chance to show that it supports military families and values military children. Supporting this bill tells kids like me that our education matters too. Thank you for listening, and I respectfully ask for a favorable report on House Bill 102.
Great job.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Christopher Arnold with the Defense State Liaison Office. When a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine gets orders and their child can't get their IEP transferred, that individual isn't thinking about the mission. They're thinking about their kid going without services. The study found that 42% of military families report that their child's IEP was not implemented at a new school. 31% nationwide said that their kids went without services for more than 60 days after a PCS move. House Bill 102 fixes this. It clarifies 3 things that military families need: remote enrollment using military orders as residency proof so families don't travel twice, school placement stability when they move from temporary housing to permanent housing mid-year, and expedited special education evaluations even during summer moves. Maryland already leads. The first state with the Department of Veterans and Military Families. The first state to pass this legislation unanimously in both houses last year. First to put your MIC-3 council on your state's military installation council. Potentially next week, first to include a military child on a state board. This bill builds on that foundation by codifying what the research shows works: operational clarity and accessible implementation. As we heard, military children change schools 6 to 9 times between kindergarten and graduation. Every delay compounds. Some have suggested that we clarify advanced enrollment doesn't include advanced services, or that it applies to the school system rather than specific schools. Both defeat the purpose. Families need to register for the classes and programs their kids need when everyone else does before they physically arrive. And when a family moves mid-year from the base housing to off-base, that 4th grader shouldn't lose their school, their teacher, and their friends because of a zip code change. So I came with a coin for my bill sponsor today. I always carry a second, and Jacob, you have earned it on behalf of the Undersecretary.
Thanks.
I'd like to present you with this coin and urge a favorable report.
That's great.
Thank you so much, Delegate, for bringing this important bill. And Jacob, I want you to know that I believe you're the first student this session to come before us and testify. So you did an excellent job. Let's give him another round of applause. We do have a couple of questions on this bill. We'll start with Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for being here. Jacob, thank you for your service. And I know your dad hears that a lot, but it's not just about your dad serving. It's about you as a family, and also, Ms. Williams, thank you so much for your service, because all of the things that you do give up or that you do in exchange for your dad being able to serve, you're the support that lets him do his job, right? And so we really appreciate you, and we appreciate you being here. And I'm very appreciative of the bill. I was a little taken aback by the letter of information by MSDE. So I did want to talk to you because they had seeming concerns about some of what, sir, that you brought up about being able to continue at a school. So if you do that advanced enrollment and then maybe you don't get on base housing, right? Maybe you do have to get off, which happens quite a lot. And sometimes you're on wait list and you might not know exactly where you're going to be. But if you do have have that whole advanced enrollment, and you've set up your IEP, you've set up your 504, you've been communicating with the school, you should not have that ripped out from under you. So I'm kind of confused where they're saying that would be like a burden to the school system. So I kind of wanted to get your thoughts about that, because I do feel that that's a really important piece of the legislation. And then the other question I had is about the role of the education liaison. Is that an already existing position, or you're establishing that position? And is it under the Office of Veterans and Military Families?
So I'm happy to speak to a couple of aspects of that. With respect to school placement stability, last year, sort of minor my microphone's on. Sorry, thank you. Last year, sort of minor nuances between the way that the Senate amendments came out and the House amendments came out caused this bill to be rolled over, but it was in relation to language saying that, a student could stay until graduation, and, some folks said, well, what if they came, in ninth grade, are we allowing them to stay all the way to high school and potentially take the spot of someone else? And, that's in the military referred to as geo-bacheloring, right, where the service member is going to move on to their next duty station and then their family's going to run behind. But it is a de minimis, concern, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
The other aspect, so each state is a member of the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission. It's an interstate compact that we developed about 16 years ago. And each state is required to appoint a military family education liaison. So Mary Gable, who's the state's MIC3 commissioner, is in charge of that appointment in the Maryland Department of Education. Separately, the Department of Veterans and Military Families has their own functions and duties that have been recently stood up. And if you'd like to speak to that, happy to, over to you.
If you can, I'm sorry, if you can try pushing the button again, or,
Oh, there we go.
Okay, there we go, thank you.
Well, as you all are aware, in 2024, legislation passed to change our department's name from Department of Veteran Affairs to include Department of Veteran and Military Families. And with that came a new position within the department, a deputy secretary over military family policy and programs. And so that is kind of why we have a personal investment, obviously, in this bill. But then also with our department's name change, we stand ready to support as need be.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing the bill.
I'd also like to remind the good delegate to look at the support we have from the superintendents. And that really is important, because for some of the school districts where military families, more or less, there's a concentration, they understand the need. And so that, I think, is really critical, that we have the unanimous support of our superintendents.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate, for the question. Delegate Roberson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Patterson, for bringing the bill. And just want to note, being a military brat, I definitely understand what it means to change schools multiple times and to make friends all over again. And so I appreciate you being here and having to do that in the state of Maryland, where I finally ended up and grew up in. We're glad to have you here in particular. Just Delegate Patterson, I just looking at last year, because I know you presented this last year and saw that it did not get through. Do we know the reason for it? Because it did pass the House and partially almost not the Senate. So I just wanted to know your thoughts as how we could support you in getting this.
Well, thank you very much. It was a timing issue. It was a timing issue. That's why it was pre-filed, and that we're hearing it now. But I certainly can understand the question, but we're very delighted to see that it did pass both chambers.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Ebersol.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. So, yeah, we did pass this bill last year. It was a pleasure to do so. Now we have it back in front of us again. If it was completely the same, it might only be a sponsor-only bill. So we got a panel, and you made mention of an amendment. And I want to know if you can distinguish, are there any differences in the bill that we did approve last year and what you've got in front of us? And maybe tell us what the amendment's about also.
It's okay.
Just let it go. She'll light it up.
Come on.
She'll light it up for you.
So the study which Penn State conducted was done across multiple phases, looking at the quality and fidelity of 4 of our previous education initiatives that we had asked states to enact: the Education Compact, the Military Student Identifier, Advanced Enrollment, and Purple Star Schools. Insofar as the recommendations of that report, Maryland was already, green for all of them except advanced enrollment, which is why this bill is focused in that lane. But in terms of the functions and duties of the MIC3 commissioner, being able to articulate that, these changes are now within the purview of the MIC3 to make accessible to military families, to help them to understand that these, policies exist, put it on the MIC3's website, place it in a prominent way, make sure that the staff are trained on it, which Commissioner Gable is like the best MIC3 commissioner in the country, so she's already going to be on top of it without putting it in the statute, but having it in the statute will be a model for the edification and emulation of other states that don't do it quite as good.
So to clarify, that's the amendment. That's not a difference in the
sir.
writing of this particular bill, but the amendment itself. Can you just say what MIC3 is, please, for me?
That stands for the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission.
Okay, thank you. And so the bill itself is identical or very near? I was doing it side by side, but I was having trouble figuring out.
The bill is identical. It just adds 2 additional duties for that MIC3 commissioner to make the policies more accessible.
The bill or the amendment has those?
The amendment adds
Thank
2 additional duties.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, seeing no additional questions, thank you again for being here. Thank you, Delegate, for bringing the bill, and thank you for your service. We really appreciate your comments and advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is House Bill 14, Delegate Foley, County Boards of Education, Bullying, Harassment, or Intimidation, Information Collection and Reporting Requirements.
And can I bring my panel up, Madam Chair?
Yes, please do.
There was one more. Oh, somebody's virtual. Somebody's virtual. Sorry. Somebody's virtual.
Yes.
What did you say?
Tolly's virtual.
I'm finally ready. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Wilkins. It's so good to see you in that seat. Vice Chair Feldmark and members of the Ways and Means Committee, thank you for the opportunity to present this bill today. For the record, I'm Delegate Linda Foley, and I'm presenting HB 14, which amends existing law to ensure that hate bias incident data that is already being reported by K through 12 public school systems will now be broken down by targeted victim groups and posted on the school system's website. Currently, state law requires school systems to have a hate bias reporting form. And while these forms vary by school system, they ultimately provide information on the perceived nature of bias incidents along with other information about the alleged incidents. This information is ultimately compiled in aggregate and sent to different entities. One example of those entities is the Attorney General's office, which is an annual statewide report. However, when the information gets to the Attorney General's office, it's expressed as a percentage of total bullying and harassment incidences rather than in raw numbers. The Office of the Attorney General indicated that it is sometimes challenging for their office to get these numbers because they aren't readily available to the public. The bill before you would simply cause school systems to disaggregate the information they have collected and report the raw numbers of hate bias incidents broken down by targeted victim groups. In other words, a school systems report, which can be as simple as a one-page chart, would show the raw number of, for example, anti-Semitic, anti-Black, anti-LGBTQ, misogynistic, anti-immigrant, and other hate incidences. Montgomery County Public Schools is one school system that makes these data points available. Other school systems do not report these numbers in a way that's easily accessible to the public. In 2024, there were 291 school-related hate incidents, roughly 1.6 per school in Montgomery County. Notably, of the 291 school-related bias incident reports, 60 incidents involved a swastika and 16 included references to Hitler and/or the Nazi salute. In Montgomery County Public Schools, 43% of 2024 hate incidents targeted Black students, and from August 2023 to March 2024, 10% of hate bias incidents in Montgomery County Public Schools targeted LGBTQ+ students. All school systems have this data. This bill would require them to break it down by targeted victim groups and post it on their websites. The timeline for posting this data fits in with the existing timeline the school systems already must abide by for state reporting. To be clear, these reports would contain raw numbers by system. There would not be any identifying personal information or a school-by-school breakdown. We've been grateful to get input with various stakeholders in drafting this bill, some of whom are here today, including the Office of the Attorney General, the Jewish Community Relations Council, the Baltimore Jewish Council, ADL, which is the Anti-Defamation League, the Maryland Center for School Safety, the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, former president of the Montgomery County Board of Education, Julie Yang, the Maryland Civil Rights Commission, the State Police, MSCA, AFT, and others. This bill has been endorsed by the Latino Caucus, the Jewish Caucus, and the Women's Caucus, and it is before the Black Caucus as well. And it has other support that you'll hear about today. You'll see that there are an overwhelming number of favorable testimony on this report. And there are 22 favorables registered here, with 6 favorables with amendment. So as we discuss this bill during the interim with these stakeholders, our discussions did not reveal any real opposition to the bill. All agreed that having this information is useful and needed. It would help school systems better direct resources to combat various hate of various groups, and would enable parents and community members to have easily accessible information regarding hate in their systems, and overall would reveal what type of hate is occurring in our school systems. This bill has wide support on all sides, as I said, and it simply amends existing law. I believe it fits seamlessly into existing practices without adding an excessive burden. The fiscal note notices that to school administrators, and having this data is another step in ensuring our school systems are safer for all. We will continue to work with stakeholders on this bill to address any concerns they might have, but I urge a favorable report on HB 14, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your attention today.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Nice to see you there as well, and esteemed members of the committee. I'm Deborah Miller, the Director of Government and Community Relations for the JCRC of Greater Washington. The JCRC represents over 100 synagogues, schools, and social service agencies in the region that serve not only the Jewish community, but all Montgomery County residents. We run a very robust education division, which focuses on combating school-based anti-Semitism and promoting safe, hate-free learning environments for all students. I'm here today in support of House Bill 14, which would change how schools collect and report incidents of bullying, harassment, or intimidation. Dramatic spikes in anti-Semitism over the last several years has been well documented and shows no sign of abating. According to the latest ADL report, Maryland ranks 5th per capita in the nation for anti-Semitic incidents. And more recently, Maryland's 2024 hate bias report found that although Jews only represent 4% of the state's population, they account for more than 28% of hate bias incidents. And for the second year in a row, the majority of those incidents occurred at K through 12 schools. We have heard from an MCPS high school baseball player who switched schools to escape kids constantly harassing him with anti-Semitic comments. We also know that some students are afraid to wear their Jewish star, like the one I'm wearing, in public at school, and most disturbing, we are receiving more frequent calls from parents of elementary school kids dealing with anti-Semitic bullying. This legislation is another tool to address anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred in the classroom. No one should be targeted because of who they are or what they believe in, especially in an educational setting. Every child deserves the fundamental right to an education free from harassment, bullying, and intimidation. For these reasons, we ask for a favorable report for House Bill 14.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Abby Snyder, Director of Government Relations for the Baltimore Jewish Council, which represents the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore, its agencies, and the organized Jewish community of the greater Baltimore region. We're also here today in support of HB 14. I want to thank the sponsor for doing such a great job of explaining what the bill does, and to my colleague Deb for explaining some of those statistics to you. I think they're all really important. One thing I'd also just like to highlight for the committee, the past few years, you have heard various bills and passed various bills on implementing anti-bias training, both in our school systems and then again for our school board members. We kind of see this as another tool to piggyback on that by being able to get this raw data when those schools are then crafting their anti-bias trainings and those regions are putting together the work that they're going to be doing there. They can see what's been going on in their region and where they might need to emphasize a certain bias area over another one, just based on the raw data that they would much more easily be able to access. This really is just supposed to be creating minimal work to vastly improve our school system's ability to collect and understand what's going on in our classrooms. Small impact of reporting, but big overall gain for our classroom teachers, for our school systems, and hopefully to eliminate some of the bullying that just continues to run rampant in our schools. So for these reasons, we ask for a favorable report on HB 14, and I also just want to highlight again that there is no fiscal note, which is just such a great thing to hear this year. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for bringing this bill. Delegate Ebersol. I missed
Madam Chair, I think we have a virtual witness.
Okay, you're right. Sorry about that. Do we have Tally Cohen, John Jason, or Patty Erspring? Okay, coming in. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Wilkins and members of the committee. My name is Tali Cohen, and I am the Regional Director of the ADL Mid-Atlantic Region and proud Maryland resident. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today in support of HB 14, which would strengthen our data collection efforts regarding hate and bias incidents in Maryland's K-12 schools. Since its inception in 1913, ADL has had a timeless mission to stop the defamation of the Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment for all. Dedicated to combating anti-Semitism, prejudice, and bigotry of all kinds, ADL has long been at the forefront of efforts to deter and counter hate incidents. HB 14 does something simple but essential. It requires schools to identify and track the specific personal identity characteristics that motivate bullying and harassment incidents, and it requires transparency. ADL strongly believes that data drives policy. We cannot address what we do not measure. According to our most recent audit of anti-Semitic incidents, Maryland had the 6th highest number of incidents in the country, 356 incidents across the state, with 107 of them occurring in K-12 schools. That's 107 times that Jewish students experienced harassment, vandalism, or assault in their schools. And we know from that research that many incidents go unreported, meaning the actual number is far higher. These aren't just statistics, they represent students in Maryland who are taunted with Holocaust jokes, who see swastikas drawn on their notebooks, or who are threatened simply because they are Jewish. Sadly, there are many stories I could share, but one I would like to raise is from 2024, where 3 13-year-old students in Plum Point Middle School in Calvert County were charged with a hate crime after displaying swastikas, making Nazi salutes, and offensive comments to a classmate simply because of the classmate's identity and religious beliefs. Hate and harassment like this can persist in our schools if it is not tracked, identified, and ultimately addressed. HB 14 will help schools and policymakers understand the scope and nature of hate-based bullying. When we track data by the motivating characteristic, whether it is religion, race, national origin, or other protected category, we can identify patterns and allocate resources effectively. This is how we move from awareness to action. Additionally, when county boards post this data publicly, it creates accountability. Parents, educators, and community members can see what is happening in their schools and work together to address it. Every student deserves to learn in an environment free from hate and harassment. By passing this bill, Maryland would be taking a critical step.
We do need you to, if you could just finish up your last thought, please.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have John Jason in the waiting room?
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Excellent.
thank you.
My name is John Jason. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Coalition for LGBTQ+ Students, a group whose mission is to provide support for youth through education, policy, and advocacy. We are urging a favorable with amendment on HB 14. The public doesn't currently have access to specific information about bullying, harassment, and bias incidents in our public schools. It is essential that this data be made available. In our role as advocates for LGBTQ+ students, we hear of numerous examples of students being targeted specifically because of their gender identity and/or sexual orientation. Students have been told in our public schools that they should die, have been pushed and shoved, had their personal property like pride symbols destroyed or stolen, and have been verbally harassed with homophobic slurs. Some students leave school or are scared to attend school because they do not feel safe. Research shows that the majority of LGBTQ+ middle and high school students report being bullied or harassed in school. HB 14 is essential because it helps inform the community of the risks in their schools. Parents need to know what they can expect so they can determine how to keep their children safe. Students need to know what kind of treatment they may encounter from their peers. Community leaders, BOE representatives, elected officials, and other resources need this information so they can do their jobs effectively. The amendment we propose for each county website is to report the number and type of bullying and harassment incidents that occur at each school. This will provide important information for families, schools, elected officials, and lawmakers as they make choices about which school district to reside in and what interventions are needed in different schools and communities. Please give HB 14 favorable with amendment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we do have either Patty Upspring or Brenda Wolf on behalf of Montgomery County who will let in. Okay, I'm being told that neither are in. I think there was a technical issue on our end, but we'll register the support of Montgomery County, and we do have written as well. Let's go into questions. We'll start with Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And thank you all for this bill. You might know that I had a bill a few years ago that addressed this issue in a different way. The time period when parents get informed of this sort of activity at a school is, I think, 3 days, which is too long. We tried to reduce it to 12 hours so that parents would know the next day. For a variety of reasons, we ran into some difficulty with that bill, but the problem is acute. You describe it beautifully, and I'm very concerned about it, and I think this sort of bill will begin to address it in a different way, but in a substantial way. So thank you. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out how we do is when the report takes place, we're asking on page 4 for counties to disaggregate them. It's by the type of protected class, or as you guys, the term you use is personal characteristic that caused or might have been the source of the bullying. My question is, how is that data gathered? Is there a checkbox, or is this lifted from the narrative when somebody makes the report so the county can see it, so that they can actually get that data and report it And so I'm curious, and I know you have an amendment, it might address that, but I'm not sure. So I'm concerned about how we transfer from the student saying, it was because I was wearing a Jewish six-pointed star, and how does that information transfer from that student and the administrator to a place where the data is actually gathered?
Thank you, Delegate, for your question and for your work on this issue and trying to make our schools safer in this regard. The state does require a form to be filled out already. And so some of that information is on the form in terms of what the school system submits. So that's really how the information gets transmitted to the state, and then how it's posted on the school website, obviously is up to the system, how they, want to post on their website. But I think, in answer to your question, I'm not sure that is uniform across the state, and there may be a degree of discretion on the part of the school system with respect to that. It might be hard to put that in legislation, but there is a form that does sort of, that's a bullying and harassment form that we could use to dig down deeper into some of those incidences, and the form could be
If the information is not on the form somewhere, then it can be ignored as being the reason if it's not processed. I mean, there's not oral reports made for every one of these. These are reports that are on paper, I shouldn't say on paper. They're clearly going to be online. So I concern myself that with differing degrees of reporting that we might not get consistent data. And one of the witnesses said one of the reasons we're doing this is so that we can look at comparisons between schools and school systems. And I think we need some uniformity there. And then that presents a problem, because what is considered a personal characteristic as a reason now may not be. I can't imagine that. In this day and age, it's going to be quite a while till we get to that, isn't it? But where we might find new personal characteristics that also become ones that are of concern. And so I'm trying to figure out how we're going to kind of get consistent down the line. And I'm willing to work on with you on that, but I think it's something we need to address.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Delegate, Mr. Chair. We have talked to the bill drafter about this issue as well. Thanks. How do we get consistency, and how do we get the information we need that would be useful? And it's a fine line, right? How do we get the information we need that'll be useful without identifying the person? We don't want to do that, right? I'd be more than happy to work with you on trying to figure that out.
I heard a couple of the caucuses that represent these groups as well speak to me about this bill already, and I've raised similar concerns with them. So I think there'll be a lot of good heads on it. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. Quick question, I guess is maybe not directly on the bill, but adjacent to the bill. So you've talked about some horrific incidents that are happening in our schools. Do you know what's happening to these kids? Are they being expelled? Are they being suspended? Are they being relocated? Are they being moved away from the students they're victimizing? Like, what's happening with the bullies versus their victims?
Delegate, the short answer is I don't know specifically. I think it varies depending upon the incident, the severity of the incident. But I would also like to point out that not all these instances, and of course, then sometimes there are, if it's an assault, for example, that would be a criminal incident, which these aren't necessarily don't result in criminal charges. But I would also point out that not all of these incidences involve like a student or even an educator. Sometimes, like we had an incident in Montgomery County recently where there was Nazi symbols and hate speech spray painted on a high school. And it probably, maybe didn't even come from somebody at the school, probably, maybe did, maybe didn't, but that would be an incident that would show up in one of these reports. So I think, back to Delegate Ebersol's question, I think that this is going to vary depending upon the incident, the school system, and the severity of the incident.
Yeah, thank you.
But thank you for the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Delegate. Let's go to Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and a huge issue. I kind of want to dig a little deeper here because these are complaints that I'm getting from my constituents, is that at the very beginning of this process, many of these aren't being recorded, okay? And if we look at, how do we incentivize people to do the right thing, there's multiple reasons for not reporting something. One is we tried to resolve it in the school and we feel it's no longer an issue. We don't want to get people in trouble. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. We talk about restorative practices. The other is there's stigmas associated with, from a management structure, from the principal of the school. No one wants to be that school that's reporting everything. My concern with this bill is that now you're putting in an even bigger light, which is in front of the public. There's even more incentive to not report, okay? If you said that you wanted to present this information to a board of mental health experts, or you had a rapid response team, if there was an influx of hate crimes or what you've described in here, the public can sometimes be very rigid. If we're looking at how do we resolve this problem, I don't know if this is the best way to get there. And I think one of your folks that was on the virtual testimony said, well, and he plain English said, parents can look at this and decide, make decisions. Now all of a sudden we have folks making decisions on where to live and what school to send their kid to, because that, I'm in a Jewish family and I see that there's 20 violations at this middle school. And, those numbers are hovering or they're persistent or they've gone up and down. I agree with everything you've said. I don't know if this is the right way to get to a point where we're fixing the problem. So what would you say about that in terms of just visibility in general and what the outcome's going to be?
Thank you, Delegate. I think one of the reasons that this bill says that we report by school system is to kind of look at it from, 10,000 feet, so to speak, or maybe 5,000 feet, right? Sure. As opposed to school by school, which I think would be much different. And that could be, I think, a deterrent for reporting incidences. I think, there may be that reluctance anyway. I'm willing to grant you that, but that's going to be there whether we do this or not. I don't want to portray this bill as solving our problems with hate in schools. It's a first step, and I believe this as a former journalist and as a resident of Maryland, and I believe, and a legislator, I believe that transparency is the first step to trying to resolve a problem. So if there is a problem, yeah, it's true that somebody might say, I don't want to send my kid, I don't want to live there because I don't want to be in that school system. But the flip side of that is that this also allows the school system and also people across the state who work on education issues and work on these issues to be able to look, like the Attorney General's office, for example, to be able to look and say, maybe we can make some improvement here. So if we're not transparent about what the problem is, I don't know how we can begin to solve it. So I look at this as a very first step, perhaps a small step, perhaps not, but it's a first step toward fixing some of these problems that we see come in the schools.
Okay, and I agree with you. And looking in the bill language in the fiscal note, there's a lot of mays. May report, may disaggregate, may this, may that. Would you be willing to assert penalties for non-reporting? I hadn't thought about that, quite frankly, because we are dealing with school systems. Sure. And I don't know that we want, I don't know that we want to penalize our school systems for not reporting. I don't know what those penalties would be. Well, that's up to the committee to kind of take a look at that issue, I think, in my opinion. If you feel strongly that there should be some penalties, perhaps you can put them in the bill. I'm not necessarily wedded to that. I really would like to just see the transparency and the public be aware of what's going on in their school systems when it comes to these events. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I'm willing to work with the committee on anything to make this stronger and better. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Delegate, for bringing the bill and how you explained it. And I obviously hate bullying and what social media has done as well. to our youngest, most vulnerable is just horrifying to me, but I do agree with both of my colleagues. So when we first started having a lot of the reporting of the bullying and the systematic use of the forms, as Delegate Hornberger said, we absolutely did see some school systems where you look at that data and you're like, oh my gosh, the bullying is just rampant in whatever county it was. And everyone else has like no bullying. No, that county is actually just being transparent, actually reaching out, doing what they're supposed to do. People know where the bullying forms are and they know how it should be reported versus no, there wasn't any. Do we really believe that? No, we do not. So that is a real issue in how we're doing this. The other one that I kind of have a little bit, but I believe it's already in existing law, is the perceived personal characteristics and how that would be noted. But I mean, it is already in existing law, so happy to look at how clarifications on how that's being done, if you have anything that you know about that. And then the other part is, while I understand Montgomery County, if you're doing it system-wide, is very different than doing it system-wide at some of our smaller counties. And so if you don't have a lot of these bullying incidents there, you can be in a situation where now you are compromising student data privacy, even though you are doing it system-wide. And I think even Strong Schools had a statement about, so how do you balance the data privacy piece in a smaller school system? Is one of the questions that I would have.
I think that's a valid question, Delegate, and thank you. And thank you for your work on making our schools better. I think that's a valid, that's something we have to weigh. I think it is. I think you stated it correctly. It is a balance, right? So we need to weigh. I mean, we want to try to figure out, where we have a problem, right? If we have a school system that has, an inordinate number of these incidents, we want to know that, right? But we also don't want to reveal personal data, and the smaller the population is, the harder that is to do. So I think it is a balancing act. We looked at this. It's why we don't do it by school, and why we're recommending that it be system-wide. And I would also point out that, sometimes these incidences don't involve like people, like it's not it's not bullying necessarily. The example I cited from the high school, I believe it was Walt Whitman High School or something. But anyway, the example I cited from the high school didn't involve bullying. It just was hate. It was just like a hate intimidation for everybody, right? So I think that's that's a question. It is a balancing act. I personally believe that while we have to protect the personal data, that it's also important to bring these incidences to light. And you can see that in some of the testimony. People go back and forth, right? So anyway, I appreciate the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing the bill.
All right, thank you so much, Delegate, and thanks, colleagues, for the great discussion. That ends the hearing on this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. And we will move forward with the next bill. Finally, Delegate Metzger, thank you for your patience today. You do have several witnesses. I have here in the room Antonio Labat, Heidi Felix, and Miranda Hart.
Somebody left her pocketbook.
I have my phone. That's what's important. Thank you very much.
I must love this committee so much that my first 3 bills have been here. Thank you very much. For the record, I'm Delegate Rick Metzger with House Bill 117, the airway cleared device known as the Bowen-Levy Airway Act. I have with me today several colleagues and some professionals, and I was looking for Mr. Levi or Mrs. Levi, but they didn't come. But let me say this from the very beginning, that when I was watching the baseball game and I saw the commercial, my heart went right to one of our colleagues that has an autistic child. And my thought went, my goodness, we need to give families and schools and students a real tool for their toolbox. And then a few moments later, I'm watching the news, and there is Levi with the family. And it just struck me that we need to do something. And Bowen Levy was a Maryland special needs student who died from an obstruction in his airway. His untimely death could have been prevented if an airway clearing device was available. These devices, ladies and gentlemen, are available for about $70, which is a small amount when it comes to saving a life. This bill would require each school to have at least one of the devices in every school and a trained staff member, such as the school nurse or teacher, who could use the airway. For these reasons, I'm asking a favorable report on House Bill 117, and I thank you for your time. But I need to share with you a little deeper than this, that this, as I've been sharing it, the people, our colleagues, have said they wanted to co-sponsor the bill, and I said I pre-filed it, and they said, well, I said, well, you can, when you vote on it, you can ask your committee person to put your name on as a sponsor. I want to introduce to you Tony Labate, and she can go from there, and then I'll turn it over to Heidi.
Okay.
And then we have a student, by the way, from Manchester, McDaniel College, sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Labate. I'm with Equal First Aid. Good afternoon to all the members of the committee, and thank you for holding this public hearing to discuss House Bill 117, the Bowen-Levy Airway Clearance Device Act. Thank you, Representative Metzgar, for the introduction to this very critical bill and your passion to help save lives. We honor Bowen-Levy today, and our thoughts are with his family. Equal First Aid is a not-for-profit organization that stands with other organizations to strive for equity, inclusion, and diversity. We raise awareness and advocate for our most vulnerable population in the event of a choking emergency. There are no policies or procedures currently in place to rescue a person in a wheelchair or a person who's medically fragile. According to the American Heart Association's written statement to our organization dated November 2023, there are no current recommendations to rescue a person with a disability. I've attached it as Exhibit A. I am here today as a representative of many organizations with their support and their blessing, as many could not attend today. Support letters are attached here as Exhibit B. Equal First Aid has many advocates testifying in support of this bill today. The Office of People with Developmental Disabilities does not prohibit such devices. That letter is attached as Exhibit C. Some of my support letters include Down syndrome, Cure SMA, spina bifida, Duchenne disease, all my advocates, and a physician from New Jersey that highly recommends devices. Our mission at Equal First Aid is to improve people's lives and bring an equal opportunity for all to be rescued in the event of a choking emergency. We believe this bill will bring inclusion, diversity, and equity to all. This bill is a proposal and a step up in the right direction to fulfill the obligations of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA law, which is already in place. That's attached here as Exhibit D.
Ma'am, if you can please wrap up your final thought.
Thank you so much. Your time in reviewing our support for House Bill 117 is greatly appreciated. Please take the time as needed to know that we are just asking for an added rescue device. It is not to replace current protocol. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Heidi Felix, and I'm honored to be representing LifeVac. And LifeVac, as the Vice President of Sales, we are grateful for your time today. There's 5,000 choking deaths per year. One child dies every 5 days. Where do children spend their days? And choking is one of the 4th leading causes of accidental death here in the United States. LifeVac is a simple, non-invasive, portable airway clearance device intended to be used when choking rescue protocols have failed or are not feasible, such as a pregnant staff member, frail, someone who may be larger, someone who is disabled in a wheelchair, or young children. Back steps and abdominal thrusts are effective about 70% of the time when performed by a trained professional. LifeVac is just another option when that has failed and can be used to dislodge an airway obstruction and help us save more lives. LifeVac has been proven to be safe and effective. We have 9 peer-reviewed medical studies that are published in medical journals about the efficacy of our device. LifeVac has received 5,349 clinical reports of lives saved worldwide, of which 3,236 were children. LifeVac has been implemented in 10,519 schools throughout the United States. We've received 105 clinical reports of lives saved by LifeVac in schools in the United States. LifeVac has been partnered with a lot of organizations who many schools purchase from: Cardio Partners, School Nurse Supply, AED Professionals, UniFirst, and Coral Medical. All have helped us implement LifeVac in schools all across the country. LifeVac is working with the FDA to ensure full compliance with their regulations and guidelines. Exponent is a company that actually did independent testing on the efficacy of LifeVac, and the results were recently submitted with our de novo application for FDA approval, which is still pending. The public health implications of these findings are significant, given the prevalence of choking incidents in pediatric and elderly populations. Increasing the awareness and accessibility of the LifeVac airway clearance device could enhance emergency response efforts, and integrating the LifeVac device into first aid training.
Final thought. Thank
Almost. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. May further improve preparedness for choking emergencies. LifeVac should be implemented in all Maryland schools, disability organizations, and anywhere where choking is something that could happen. Thank you so much. Everyone deserves another option to be saved in a choking emergency. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Madam Chair and members of committee, my name is Miranda Hart, and I am a 17-year-old high school student in Carroll County, and I'm here today to show my strong support for House Bill 117. Through my involvement in the Maryland Student Legislature, I wrote and passed a bill very similar to House Bill 117. The experience showed me that students across Maryland believe schools should be better equipped to respond to choking emergencies, and that student safety must come first. The passage of the bill reflects clear student support for adding airway clearance devices to our school systems. We need this bill because choking emergencies happen suddenly, and in school settings, staff can be left with limited options when the Heimlich maneuver is unsuccessful. As a student trained in CPR and basic first aid, I recognize that while the Heimlich maneuver is a critical first-line response, it is sometimes not effective or safe in every situation. The Heimlich maneuver is intended only for conscious individuals and cannot be used once a person becomes unconscious. It can be difficult to perform if a responder is smaller than the victim or the victim has certain disabilities. In those moments, time is lost and options are limited. House Bill 117 does not replace the Heimlich maneuver. Instead, it acknowledges its limitations and provides an additional life-saving option when traditional methods are unsuccessful or no longer appropriate. Airway clearance devices can be used on both conscious and unconscious individuals, giving school staff another chance to restore airflow when seconds count. In addition, these devices are generally easier to operate and do not require the same level of physical strength, allowing a wider range of staff members to respond effectively in emergency situations. As a student, I proudly support legislation that equips educators with the tools they need to respond to life-threatening situations. No family should have to experience a tragedy of a preventable choking incident, and no school staff should be left without options when seconds matter. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the favorable report of House Bill 117. Thank you for your time and commitment to the safety of Maryland students.
Very nicely done. Miranda?
Yes.
Excellent job. We always love when students come and testify, so thank you for being involved, your work with the Maryland Student Legislature, and also drafting and passing this bill on your own through the Student Legislature. Congratulations, and just in time, so great job. Are there any questions on this bill? We will go to our virtual witnesses as well, but any questions for these witnesses? Go ahead, Delegate Ebersol.
This is another device that needs to be used. For example, it can be compared to AD that are really very instructive when people use them. They actually say the commands to you as you use them. So my question is, you have in the bill that the county will authorize a nurse or other personnel to use the airway clearing device. How do you envision that authorization taking place? Are people going to have to train how to use these properly? And I didn't get all the way through the bill, so I apologize if it's there. Are there Good Samaritan protections in the use of this device? So those are 2 questions, please. Just leave it alone. She'll turn it on for you. Just hang on.
Madam Chair, may I display so they can see them? I'll pass them around.
Perfect. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for your question. I appreciate that. There is about a 5-minute training video for this. It's a very simple device to use. It was intended to be used by a panicking parent, and that was why it was invented by our CEO. So it really is a portable suction, and it's something that many ambulances already carry, portable suction, some of it's powered suction, but our device actually can be used on children as well as adults. It has interchangeable masks, and it's very intuitive. Inside each one of the kits, there is instructions for use. And in regard to the Good Samaritan law, I did actually provide you some information about that as well, so that you have that. There's the do no harm, there's premise liability, and some other things that, from a risk evaluation standpoint, many of the school districts bring those things up. So I decided to prepare you with all that information as well.
Thanks.
But there are 2 different devices. One, we call it a home kit. It was originally designed for people and consumers, and it has a practice mask. And that practice mask can actually be used for demonstration purposes to show people how to use the device. And then the other 2 masks are an adult and a pediatric masks, both of which kept sterile, and it can be used for resuscitation as well as training purposes.
Thanks.
But we do have a great video on our website for that purpose.
And I wonder if the sponsor envisions us requiring teachers or school personnel to train on this.
Typically, what we do is we train the nurses, and the nurses in turn train. But there is annual training typically for staff as well as teachers for CPR. And many CPR instructors throughout the state of Maryland and other states have actually incorporated LifeVac as another option when everything else fails at the end of their choking rescue portion of their courses.
So my question was, do you envision required training? Like, are teachers going to be required to train to use this device if you're going to have it in the school?
I don't think so.
I don't foresee that being an issue, though. I mean, most people are fairly simple. Have you ever used a plunger before? That's exactly how simple this device is.
Right. It's not my question about the ability to use it. My question is when you have teachers in a position where there are devices that need to be used, sometimes they offer training and sometimes they require training.
Okay.
And so this becomes an issue of professionalism.
I would say they can opt in to require it. If they want to require it, they can. If they don't have to train.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Long.
Had a couple of questions. The first question is, do these have any time limits, how long they can be saved or, stored? And do they have to be stored in a certain area, have the sunlight, whatever?
Great question. So the device itself never expires. The masks will. So the masks will need to be replaced every 2 to 3 years. Environmental conditions definitely plays into that. We have some very cold temperatures out there, and I always tell everyone not to be keeping their travel kit in their car because it does actually deflate the masks, not that they won't work. So we have an expiration date on the masks only inside the kit.
Let me make sure I'm hearing you right. So let's say first inside a school, they store it wherever. Hopefully it's out of sunlight. I imagine sunlight would deteriorate the mask. And then you say you'll actually have an expiration date on it. It has to be replaced every 2 years?
Correct, between 2 and 3 years.
Okay.
And each of the masks actually is labeled accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm not seeing any more questions, but we will bring in our virtual witnesses, Eric Ryan, Kimya Devani, and Avalon Tortora. Eric, you can begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Eric Ryan. I'm 37. I was born with muscular dystrophy, and I've always used the wheelchair. This is me in my wheelchair. I'm here in support of the bill. I've been working with Eco First Aid for almost 2 years now, and I'm gonna make this quickly because I only have a minute and a half. But I'll, show my support with the story. When I was 7 years old, this was before LifeVac was even a thing. my twin brother, we were both 7 years old, and he started choking on a hot dog. My mom obviously was frantic. I can put myself there like it was yesterday. She turns him upside down, pat him on the back. My dad tried to hit him on the back. We're both in wheelchairs, so, and the way our bodies are, you cannot give us the Heimlich maneuver. My mom's calling the ambulance. My brother was blue. It was after about 2 minutes. I don't know how my dad thought to do it, but he decided he was going to give it a shot. He pinched my brother's nose and sucked on his mouth, and the hot dog was able to come dislodged. I would say for the next 5 minutes, my dad was throwing up in the bathroom, but he was able to save his life. I know I hear a lot of people saying, well, what if this, what if that? Listen, stairs can get you upstairs. The Heimlich maneuver is an option for when you're choking, but we don't say, let's not put a ramp in the building for people that can't use stairs. In my opinion, it would be wildly inappropriate and unacceptable to not give people like myself an option when we're choking, because without my dad doing that, my brother wouldn't be here. So I would appreciate if you can take that into consideration when making your decision. And I'm assuming everybody here is going to make the right one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. We appreciate your testimony. Next up, Kimya or Avalon?
I'll go if you guys don't mind.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to turn on the video here. It seems like the host has turned off the video. If someone wouldn't mind putting that back. There we go. Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Avalon Tortora, and today I'd like to be sharing my experience with LifeVac as not only a user of the device in my occupational field, but also as somebody whose life has personally been saved by it. I'd like to begin by thanking the Ways and Means Committee for this hearing today, as well as Representative Metzgar and for proposing this bill, and Madam Chair. As most of you know, LifeVac is a non-invasive airway clearance device that is used in choking emergencies when standard protocol has failed. Before I retired, I worked in the home health field where I would care for individuals with disabilities in their home setting. Many of these patients had disabilities that put them at higher risk for choking, and because of this, I always carried LifeVac in my car if the clients didn't already have one in their home. I had one patient in particular that was immobile, and because of intellectual disability was at high risk for choking at mealtimes. During my time with this patient, they experienced full airway obstructions at least 5 times in the 5 years I worked with them. And of course, during our time together. Now, each of these times we struggled to initiate standard protocol because of the patient's inability to stand or follow direction. And because of this, in each of these situations, I utilized LifeVac to remove the obstruction. All 5 times it took less than 30 seconds before it was entirely cleared. At the time, I was also living with a life-shortening condition, and when I became too sick, I retired due to the need of needing around-the-clock care at this point and being in a wheelchair as well myself. Knowing how LifeVac saved my life and my patients on multiple occasions, I made sure to train my personal caregivers on how to use the device in case of any emergencies, and this ended up saving my life because of my progression. I started to develop dysphagia or trouble swallowing. And my caretaker was able to use LifeVac on me during a choking incident during a focal seizure where I was actually not conscious enough to be able to stand up, nor could I because of being in a wheelchair. Again, it took less than 30 seconds for them to completely remove the obstruction. So I personally witnessed LifeVac save multiple lives, including myself and my patient, and having this device in schools is just as important as having an AED, a first aid kit, and even a fire extinguisher. Schools in general are bound by the ADA and are required to make reasonable accommodations for their students with disabilities. And there are multiple disabilities that do increase the risk of choking, such as cerebral palsy, dysphagia, epilepsy, muscular dystrophy, autism, just to name a few. And some of these disabilities could make it harder for faculty at schools to initiate standard choking measures because of barriers like wheelchairs, trachs, inability to stand, follow directions. LifeVac is that backup measure that bridges the gap and increases the likelihood of successful outcomes for those people. And to wrap up, it is also important to note that LifeVac is a non-invasive clearance device. This means you do not have to open the person's mouth and place anything inside in order to use it. This is especially an important safety measure because of people who are choking, especially with disabilities
Ms.
like cerebral.
Avalon, we do need to go on to the next witness, but we got a lot of great information from you. Thank you so much.
Okay, my last thing was just talking about the ADA in schools, if you wouldn't mind.
I have let you go over a full over 30 seconds, so we do need to move on. But do we have your written, or are you able to follow up with it?
Yes, I do have my written that I.
Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Ms. Kimya, you can please proceed. Ms. Devani, if you can please unmute and we'll start you over.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Kimya Devani, and I am in support of House Bill 117. My son choked on a soft-shelled bean taco while we were eating dinner. He went silent while eating, and he had a facial expression of horror. We started the rotation of the Heimlich maneuver and the back slaps right away. I'll never forget the feeling of being helpless, that I could not dislodge the food with my Heimlich technique, but also thinking my mom is putting together the airway clearance device now, and there is still hope before he dies. Fortunately, after the 6th Heimlich, the food was dislodged. My friend's daughter also choked the year before this. She turned blue, and when the Heimlich continued to fail, she used the airway clearance device, and she was finally able to breathe. Permanent brain damage starts after 4 minutes without oxygen. This is typically often not enough time to receive help from emergency services. Usually, all hope lies with the people witnessing the choking. The Heimlich maneuver fails 14% of the time, and this rate is higher if the person performing the action is not trained. When the Heimlich fails, the airway clearance device is the next tool and the only tool that we have to rescue a person before they die. I support House Bill 117 so that every child in school has a chance to survive if the Heimlich maneuver fails or is not able to be performed. I support this bill so that no one is left with the lifelong guilt that they could not save a choking child. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and for using that to advocate for change. We appreciate it. Are there any questions for these witnesses? Okay. Seeing none, thank you so much, Delegate, for bringing this bill. Thank you to each of you for sharing your perspectives and your stories, and we're looking forward to further consideration of it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that ends the bill hearing for House Bill 117. Next up, the rest of the day is Vogel Day.
Vogelpalooza.
Yes, Vogelpalooza, House Bill 13.
I hear there's a committee dinner tonight. Everyone might miss it because I'm going to go over. I'm just kidding. Madam Chair, committee members, it is great to be here. Which one should I start with, Madam Chair?
House Bill 13, please.
Which is a subtraction modification for 911 specialists. As many of you recall, we passed legislation allowing a subtraction modification for other public safety personnel that work in our state, that are working as we sit here right now, saving lives, putting out fires, and 911 specialists who are the first ones you call when there's an emergency. They're highly trained on the other end of the phone in tense situations. The decisions that they make can really mean a difference between life and death. They were not included in the initial program. So this legislation, out of fairness, seeks to bring them into the program, allowing subtraction modification for them as well. Under this bill, eligible retirees age 55 and older would be able to subtract up to $15,000 of their retirement income from their adjusted gross income, bringing these specialists in line again with other public safety employees and ensuring consistency and allowing these retirees to retire with dignity and fairness and the respect they have earned throughout their decades of public service. With that, I urge a favorable review on House Bill 13, and I will note that the Senate did pass this bill last year, and I'm hopeful that we get it passed this year and get it to the governor's desk.
Thank you, Delegate, for bringing this bill. It was sponsor only. Any questions? Seeing no questions from my colleagues, let's just go in numerical order. Actually, that wouldn't be in numerical order. Let's go to House Bill 87,
Great.
Income Tax Energy Efficient Home Improvement Credit.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, here with House Bill 87, which is a tax credit for energy efficiency improvements in homes. This was already a program that was in place at the federal level until the budget bill that passed earlier or last year. And this bill is intended to allow homeowners, as they're making improvements to their home, whether it is an energy audit or installing a heat pump or more energy efficient windows or doors, to be able to receive a tax credit for it. This will incentivize folks to make these energy efficiency improvements, which will drive down the cost of their monthly energy bill and reduce carbon emissions that we urgently need to take on if we want to address the climate crisis. I will note that there is testimony from BG&E, there's testimony from CCAN and a number of other organizations bringing together a diverse coalition of folks who don't always agree on everything, but agree that this is an important step to reduce carbon emissions and drive down energy bills here in the state of Maryland. With that, I urge a favorable report on House Bill 87.
Thank you, Delegate. Any questions on House Bill 87? All right, seeing none, that ends the hearing on House Bill 87.
Do we have any oral testimony on that one?
No, we didn't have any testimony signed up on this
okay.
one.
Okay, never mind.
Was there someone
Sorry.
waiting? Oh, okay. Okay,
Unless,
House
Jen,
Bill.
did you want to, are you good? Sorry, I don't.
Didn't file for oral, but I am here.
Okay, in case any questions, all right.
Okay. All right, thank you. That ends the hearing on House Bill 87. Next up, House Bill 124.
House Bill 124.
You do have someone signed up in person. Karen Morgan, are you here? Okay.
Come on up. Great, fantastic. So, Madam Chair, committee colleagues, here with House Bill 124. I just want to tell you a story of a constituent of mine, and I've included this story in my testimony as well, if you see it in your floor system. A constituent of mine that got defrauded $500,000. She was a victim of a very complex scam that stole $500,000 from her retirement savings account. Because of her inability to deduct those losses from her taxes, she ended up owing approximately $100,000 in federal taxes and $50,000 in state taxes on top of the $500,000 that she lost. So you can imagine someone who's in this situation who has just lost their entire life savings, their entire retirement account is now drained, and they have to somehow find a way to come up with $150,000 to pay their state and federal taxes. That might mean selling their home. That might mean, draining the little left retirement savings that they have. It should be a concern to all of us. So the legislation that I have here before you allows for victims of scams to deduct those losses, giving them I don't even want to call it a tax break, because really what we're talking about here is the state seeking revenues and obtaining revenues from some mostly seniors who have gone through a traumatic scam experience and have already lost so much. I don't think we should be, getting revenue on their backs. So this creates that deduction, and I will let my friends here explain more on why this bill is so important. And I urge a favorable report on House Bill 124.
Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Karen Morgan. I'm a volunteer with AARP Maryland. I am a member of their executive council, and AARP Maryland is here in enthusiastic support of House Bill 124. We are a nonpartisan nonprofit organization with over 850,000 members in the state of Maryland. And AARP Maryland is laser focused on financial security for our members and their families. Fraud is something that can happen to anyone. It's never about how smart you are. It's about how emotional you are. And that's why when people have their income secured in investment accounts and bank accounts or whatever, and then it is stolen, it causes such devastation. The other thing that I want to mention is that not one person has ever lost $1 in a scam. It was all stolen. These criminals steal money. That's what they do. People know where their money's supposed to be. When it's stolen, it's not where it's supposed to be. And that is a huge problem, a $158 billion problem, according to recent AARP Maryland research. So much of this crime goes unreported. Only about 10% of it actually gets reported to law enforcement because of the shame and devastation that's involved with this crime. People commit suicide over this crime. What this bill would do, and why AARP Maryland supports it, is it would cause people to not have to lose money because their stolen funds are counted as gross income for tax purposes. And we think that should happen. People should not be further injured after having their funds stolen by a criminal. So we ask for a favorable report on House Bill 124.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you, Delegate, for this bill. I think this is the only witness on this bill, so we'll go to questions. Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate Vogel, for bringing the bill and for all that you're doing to help Marylanders who've been put in really awful situations. I don't know if you've had a chance to see yet the letter of information from the Comptroller's office, and I wondered if you wanted to react to the concerns might be too strong a word, the issue that they raised in terms of how they would basically administer the bill. They suggested perhaps using a third-party verification system, and I just wanted to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, thank you, Delegate. I have it open right here in front of me. I think there's two different scenarios here that they're laying out for how they would be able to implement and enforce this. One is they might need to hire some additional staff that can review these specific cases. And the other is delegating it to a different agency. Maybe we get law enforcement more involved in some way to audit and create these approve these credits before they get to the Comptroller's office. I'm really open to either of those suggestions. We have language in this bill that seeks to guard against abuse of this tax deduction. So, I'm happy to work with your subcommittee and the Comptroller's office to try to come up with an enforcement mechanism here that protects against any sort of fraud or abuse, which is the last thing that we want, right? And ensures adequate implementation and enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions on House Bill 124, this ends the hearing on House Bill 124, and we'll go to House Bill 151 next. sales and use tax, distribution of cannabis sales tax revenue. You do have two witnesses on this one. In person, Gavin Falcon and Lena Morial Scott.
If you're here, guys, come on up. Madam Chair, here with House Bill 151, which addresses the issue of the Veterans Trust Fund being underfunded in the state of Maryland. Every year, the trust fund receives more claimants, more requests for funds than they have funds available. And these funds can be used by military families, by veterans, by Gold Star parents, in moments of financial distress, whether that's being able to continue paying their rent or paying their utilities or paying their car payments. We've seen a significant uptick in claims to the Veterans Trust Fund in the last year, given in the DOGE and layoffs of federal workers. We know many of them are veterans, and the financial distress that many veterans and their families are in, and military families are in right now. There is no mandated appropriation to the Veterans Trust Fund, which has now left, one of the reasons that I've chosen to introduce this bill is because I've seen the effort that this coalition, in part led by the Veterans Caucus here, the Maryland Military Coalition, and other organizations are going out and trying to fundraise for this fund to be able to support the veterans who are right now in financial distress. And I understand that we are in a tough fiscal position here in the state, but anything that we can do, any amount of money that we can put into this fund to support distressed veterans who have served this nation, I think would go a very long way. So this bill proposes to take a portion of cannabis revenues and dedicate those revenues to this fund, but I'm open to other suggestions or ideas on how we can appropriate some additional funding to this fund, whether it be just a direct appropriation or some other way to fully fund this fund and get the veterans the support they need in this challenging moment. And with that, I urge a favorable report on House Bill 151.
Thank you, Delegate. Quick question on this.
Yes.
I know that the fiscal note says that the fund consists of gifts and grants. It looks like there is some instant lottery machines, state income tax checkoff. So is this currently, does the fund currently have money, and is it that you're trying to increase the funds to it, or is it not funded currently? I just wanted to make sure I understood what you said.
They have, and I actually have a quote here from I'll tell you who the quote is from. The executive director of the fund, who said at a Veterans Commission meeting last year that there are too many claimants and not enough funds. So the fund very quickly runs out of money. My understanding is that the state funding they're getting is in part, and I think George and I have had this conversation already, is in part from the bill that Delegate Ebersol sponsored last year that we overrode in the special session. They're getting a portion of that funding from video lottery terminals or ITLM, sorry. And thank you. But again, I don't think there's a clear, I don't think we know exactly how much of that they're actually going to ultimately get. Regardless, right, they're still running into the issue where they're running out of funds very quickly. So anything that we can do to provide additional funding would go a very long way.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So what you're looking at is about 4.1 million, increasing up to almost 6.2 million by the year 2031, if predictions hold correct. This is money that just would have gone to the general fund, and you're just specifying that it has to go there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Delegate, I think there's flexibility, and I understand the budget situation that we're in. There's flexibility on how much. And I'm very open, again, to ideas for different sources of funding or whether it's just a mandatory appropriation. But I think every little bit helps right now, especially given the situation that many of these veteran families are in.
All right, thank you so much, Delegate. I think we are now on the last bill in Vogelpalooza, House Bill 57. Public Schools Maryland Civic Excellence Program established. And you do have 5 witnesses on this bill, so if you're in the room.
And we're going to make it so quick. I'm looking right at you, Delegate Eversole, so fast.
I welcome an extra minute if the chair wants to give every witness.
I'm going to be quick. Well, House Bill 57, Madam Chair, Committee, House Bill 57 looks to incentivize, encourage the youngest Marylanders to get more civically engaged, to participate in our democracy, to learn about our democracy in school, to be involved here as pages, as interns, as volunteers. I know that I'll just quickly mention one of the students that was supposed to testify, Gavin Falcon, had to head out. So I just quickly want to read the last bit of his testimony, which is that this bill is about consistency and fairness.
Delegate Vogel, I'm so sorry.
Am I not allowed
This is
to?
my fault, but we did have 2 virtual witnesses on
the
your
last bill?
last bill.
Okay.
And they are in the waiting room, so we're going
Got
to
it.
pause this, and we're going to go back to the 2 people that were waiting, and we'll come back to civic excellence. Y'all can stay up there. My apologies. Ms. Marable Lewis, you can proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Wilkins, and to all the esteemed members of the Ways and Means Committee, and thank you for the opportunity to provide my testimony in support of HB 151. And thank you to Delegate Vogel for putting forth this bill. My name is Shanice Marable Lewis. I'm a proud Army combat veteran and Executive Director of Veterans Initiative 22, a nonprofit organization whose mission is veteran suicide prevention through safe and affordable access to medical cannabis. I strongly support HB 151, but respectfully urge for you to amend it from 3% to 5% for the following reasons. First is proportionate. Veterans are 6% of Maryland's population, but represent approximately 15% of medical cannabis patients, double our population share. In Maryland, we lose 150 veterans to suicide annually. The veteran suicide rate is 1.5 times higher than that of non-veterans. A 5% allocation reflects actual veteran need. Second, and most importantly, veterans built the cannabis industry. We testified before committees like this one when it was politically, professionally, and personally risky. We shared our trauma to destigmatize the medicine. Maryland's cannabis industry generated $1.2 billion in its first year. Veterans helped build that. So this is a charity. It's justice. Third, the Maryland's Veterans Trust Fund has a proven track record supporting essential programs that directly address veteran suicide prevention, mental health services, family support, and crisis intervention. It has helped countless veterans across our state through critical programs and grant funding to organizations that directly serve veterans. In 2025, the fund had to stop accepting applications from organizations due to lack of government funding. This is unacceptable. A cannabis tax allocation, a 5% cannabis tax allocation would generate substantial resources for evidence-based interventions and ensure this vital fund stays available to both veterans and the organizations supporting them, preventing future funding crises. I urge you to vote favorably on House Bill 151 with the proposed amendment, and thank you for your time and consideration, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much. Can our next witness please come on in and you can start? Mr. Spiegel, you can take yourself off mute. We'll start you over.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jason Spiegel, President of the Maryland Military Coalition, and we request a favorable report on HB 151. In addition to providing grants and loans to veterans, military families, and members of the National Guard, the fund also provides grants to organizations that deliver services to veterans. As has been discussed, the fund receives no state appropriated funds. Rather, it relies on private sector donations and proceeds from lotteries and other games. This year, for the first time, an income tax checkoff line 39 of Maryland Form 502 will be available to support the fund. As has been discussed, the fund regularly runs out of money and application for assistance are suspended. Last year, more than 200 qualified applicants were denied support due to insufficient funds. Delegate Vogel quoted the comment from the executive director of the trust fund that there are too many claimants and not enough funds. The director made that comment in response to my question about why whole classes of military personnel are excluded from the fund. Members of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard, and U.S. Public Health Service Reserve are not eligible to receive support from the fund because there's just not enough money to go around. The trust fund requires a sustained revenue stream that will enable it to satisfy the needs of eligible claimants suffering financial hardship. We applaud Delegate Vogel's innovative solution to place the fund on a sound financial footing and urge a favorable report on HB 151. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spiegel. My apologies again to the last two witnesses and to Delegate Vogel. We will, unless there are any questions, end the hearing for a second time on House Bill 151. And we will now go to the final bill, House Bill 57, Maryland Civic Excellence Program. And Delegate Vogel, you can begin again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here with House Bill 57, which encourages our youngest Marylanders to get more civically engaged. Gavin Falcon, who was here to testify, had to run out. And I'll just quickly read just a couple sentences that he wrote. At its core, this bill is about something simple but essential, recognizing and encouraging civic education in our schools at a time of increasing polarization and disengagement. We cannot afford to treat civics as an afterthought. With that, I will turn it over to this incredible panel who will share more about this bill, and I urge a favorable report on House Bill 57.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Will Andrioni. I am a senior at Severna Park High School in Anne Arundel County. I serve as the Secretary of Legislation for the Chesapeake Regional Association of Student Councils, or ACPS's student government, and I'm here today in strong support of House Bill 57, a bill that will motivate students to get more involved with civics in their community through the seal of biliteracy and reward students who have demonstrated considerable civic commitment in their communities. Through working with student governments and student leaders alike, I've seen how exposure to civics early on transforms a student into a leader. The issue with students not being involved isn't rooted in apathy, but rather lack of awareness of opportunities and lack of recognition. By introducing the seal of civic excellence, schools are given a way to recognize the outstanding student leaders who commit themselves to understanding and entrenching themselves in government and community. These recognitions may seem symbolic for a lot of students and for a lot of people, but the motivation it brings often sparks a lifetime passion for these students. I'm a product of this. I'm a product of extrinsic motivation sparking passion. My sophomore year of high school, I signed up to be an election judge in the 2024 primary election. My AP Gov teacher told me about it, so I checked it out. And members of this committee, when I tell you my reaction when I saw that $375 stipend, I don't think I've signed up for anything faster. But being there election day with people passionate about democracy and community made something click in me. So it started as a quick paycheck, some extrinsic motivation, quickly snowballed into something more, into a genuine passion for civics. House Bill 57 isn't just about rewarding students for engaging in civic life. It's about creating a culture in which civic learning is valued in every single classroom. A favorable report for House Bill 57 is one to ensure Marylanders not only graduate academically prepared, but civically ready to lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Chris Keene. I'm from Washington County, Maryland. I'm a young adult. And I also completed the inaugural Service Year Option Maryland Corps program and have dedicated my life to service in the state, but I wasn't always that way. When I was in high school, I wasn't involved in civics at all. I didn't know what was out there. But when I saw that opportunity to serve my state and to reach for a higher passion, I signed up immediately. It was the state saying that we see you and we want you to build our communities as young people, because oftentimes the door is not open, it is closed. And this seal allows for students to achieve and look forward to possibility where they will be recognized by the state. We are looked at nationally as a leader in civic innovation. We have a department for that. We are leading in the country, but right now we are not leading for our high schoolers. That is our pipeline. That is essential to making sure that our service year program is successful, that our military has people who are ready for it, that care about their community, our National Guard, that there are people who see that there are other opportunities out there. That is what a civic seal does. So there's no way to put an economic tie to that, because if I did not get involved in a service year program, $230,000 of formula in the state of Maryland would have gone bad, and it wouldn't have been delivered to families for free. That's what I did as a volunteer because I was in that program, because I saw a higher passion to serve. That is what service does. That is what civic excellence does. And instilling that in our high school students is essential to Maryland, because we are a state that will serve, it will save us, and civic excellence is what drives our society forward. Thank you so much, everyone.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeannie Massey. Thank you, Madam Chair and esteemed committee members. I'm here today on behalf of the Maryland Civic Education Coalition to express our strong support for Maryland Seal of Civic Excellence program. Our state has one of the longest standing service learning graduation requirements, yet because responsibility for resourcing and implementation has largely been left to counties, access to high quality civic experiences has varied and equity gaps have emerged over time. Now, the young men sitting next to me, all three of them, it was only a matter of time for them for the service civic responsibility bug to bite. But as a classroom teacher, I've been surrounded by young people who have not figured out the world beyond their screen, their video game, or the teacher who seems more like a jailer to them. A civic diploma seal offers that extrinsic motivation. It offers a timely and unifying way to strengthen Maryland, what Maryland already values: positive school culture, civic responsibility, and college and career readiness. Nearly 20 states have already taken this step, recognizing that civics is a core part of preparing young people for adult life. But Maryland only recognizes civics as a high school pathway for certificate track students, not general diploma students. Importantly, this initiative merits the clarity and durability of legislative action. Passing a civic seal through the General Assembly ensures transparency, statewide legitimacy, and long-term stability. A bill signed by the governor sends a powerful message that civic learning begins in pre-K through 12 education and is a shared commitment of the state. Civics is the bridge between knowledge and action, between school and community, between individual growth and the common good. As we approach the nation's 250th anniversary, let's tell the next generation that their voices matter, that their service matters, that their participation belongs at the very center of Maryland's communities, because the communities benefit themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Wilkins and distinguished members of the committee. I am honored to speak in support of HB 57, which I believe will strengthen our shared and bipartisan democracy. My name is Lena Morielli Scott, and I've been dedicated to civic education for more than 35 years. I now serve as the Director of Civic Education and Engagement Initiative at the College of Education and the Principal Investigator of the Maryland Democracy Initiative, both at the University of Maryland. I'm also the co-founder of the Maryland Civic Education Coalition, of which several of us are here gathered today. Our coalition is now more than 370 members strong. It grows by the month. We have more than 70 organizations who support our nonpartisan mission to advance meaningful, equitable service learning and civic learning. We believe that one of the most fundamental ways to strengthen our democracy is through high-quality civics. And as you know best, that an informed and engaged citizenry is essential to representative democracy, responsive government, and to strong communities. We have reason to be concerned that Americans lack essential civic knowledge about things that we've discussed and heard about, that you've discussed and I've heard about today, such as fundamental principles like the principles of democracy and accountability, transparency, civic participation, the balance of powers that you have talked about, oversight, Supreme Court cases even came up today. This is civic knowledge that many of our students do not have. but we can improve. And there are skills like negotiation, advocacy, consensus building, information and media literacy. These are skills that we can build with high-quality civics programs. We have good news. Students who participate in high-quality civics are equipped with the knowledge, skills, and experiences necessary to participate successfully, and they have the agency, the belief that their participation matters. Thank you for consideration of the bill, and I urge your strong support.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other in-person witnesses? All right. Any questions from colleagues? Well, I want to make sure I thank our students for their impactful advocacy. I know we've heard this bill a few times, and you've been very organized, very detail-oriented, very strategic, and so congratulations on your advocacy and your involvement and making your voices heard on this issue. We really do appreciate it. All right, seeing no questions from any of my colleagues, and no virtual witnesses, make sure. Okay, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 57, and that concludes our bill hearings for the day. Thank you.
This is the work that's the problem. Participating local school systems shall utilize the guidelines to set up the criteria. So if we just